I can see, so let's move on to business item 5A. Consider adoption of resolution and appreciation of Susan McNamara-Hill. Greg.
Sure, just a quick overview here. As you may have heard, the town of Essex, as in Village of Essex Junction, have separated. As part of that, we've been drawing certain services apart, separating some of the town departments. The clerk's office is one of the ones that is going to be split, or shared service is going to be ending on June 30th. Susan McNamara-Hill has been the town clerk for the past several years. She's dedicated decades to the community. She's worked with the Village of Essex Junction. She's going to be going back to the City of Essex Junction. So there is a resolution of appreciation for her in the packet.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Before I make the motion, does the resolution need to be read?
We typically do read
We
it.
typically do. The clerk typically reads it into the record. Yes.
I'm good with that. So resolution in appreciation of Susan McNamara-Hill. Whereas Susan McNamara-Hill began training for the town clerk and treasurer position in 2016 and was officially appointed for the town of Essex in January 2017. And whereas Susan will be resigning as town clerk and treasurer on June 28, 2023. And whereas Susan served 2 municipalities as clerk and treasurer for nearly 7 years through a period of shared services for the town of Essex and the village city of Essex Junction. And whereas Susan has performed laudable service in managing all elections, vital statistics, required reporting, and customer transactions during her Essex tenure. And whereas Susan led the effort to digitize land records in 2019, eliminating a multi-step process and creating an online index allowing title searchers the ability to search the database from the town's website, creating efficiencies for the office and customers that was particularly valuable during the pandemic. And whereas Susan...
Recording in progress.
During the pandemic, when clerks were often the only employees working in the office to answer customer inquiries and provide critical support to other departments that were working remotely. And whereas Susan mentored numerous municipal employees and election volunteers, demonstrating leadership through expertise and meticulous attention to detail as the repository of records for 2 municipalities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that, on the occasion of Susan's departure from the town of Essex, that the Selectboard, on behalf of the staff and residents of the town of Essex, hereby extend our most sincere appreciation to Susan McNamara-Hill for her commendable service. Adopted this 26th day of June, 2023 by the Essex Selectboard.
Okay, thank you, Kendall.
At this time, I make the motion to select board adopt a resolution in appreciation of Susan McNamara-Hill.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any further discussion? Do you want to comment?
Thanks, Susan, for all of her hard work, for helping me many times for a lot of different things, and my wife as well. And I think anybody that's been in this community has been lucky to have a clerk's office who will hold your hand through the process when you don't know a lot of the things that go on. So you've done awesome work.
Okay. Thank you, Ethan. Yeah, no, it's a very complicated job. There's a lot of pieces to it that need to come together and stay together and move in the right direction to keep the town on track.
When you come to BCA tomorrow night, you can thank her personally.
Yeah.
Right.
And Ed nudged us.
Okay, any comments?
I would just say she will be missed.
Knowing what it takes to digitize records. Thank you, Susan.
It was a big lift. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Let's move on to business item 5B, interview volunteers to serve in the Community Advisory Board. We have 3, here, all 3 present. There's Chris Harvey. Chris here or online? See Chris, Arthur Bergeron, and Dan McGuire. Okay, great. So I guess we will do these in order of, typically what we do is in the order that they appear on the agenda. So Arthur, come on up, introduce yourself.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Bergeron.
And just share anything you'd like with the
Sure.
with the board to help us consider whether to?
Yeah, sure. I reside here in the town of Essex. I moved here in 2020 with my family from Fairfax, Vermont. My daughter wanted to attend a bigger high school for the sports, and there was a lot more opportunity for her to be able to have attended a bigger school here at Essex High School. A little bit about me. I've been married for 26 years. I have 3 beautiful children. I was a career firefighter for the city of Burlington for 23 and a half years. Have an absorbent amount of experience on both sides, criminal justice and being a professional firefighter, as well in the medical field, including with narcotics, depression, PTSD, anxiety, an array of different types of things that these officers and first responders see on a daily basis. What else can I tell you? My son's a state trooper for the state of New Hampshire. He serves in the United States Army, and my son Colby is in the Air Force. Both graduated from Norwich with criminal justice degrees. And my daughter just graduated from Essex High School, and she is off to Coastal Carolina to also study criminal justice.
Okay, thank you.
Any
Board
questions?
members, any questions?
What do you see your role on the Community Affairs Advisory Board? Excuse me. Be.
My role, I read a little bit in regards to the description. I actually was reading it when I was just resting at home, and then when I woke up after signing up, I was like, whoa, like there's a lot of things in law enforcement as far as first responders, community justice, a lot of kids suffering, a lot of different things in life, whether that be at home, in school, or just on the street. It's important to know I grew up as 15 brothers and sisters. I grew up in a very rough neighborhood in Boston, Massachusetts. I have brothers that are in prison personally that got caught up in the drug game back in the day. I've seen a lot as far as these kids and adults and low income, high income, could be the president of a bank to the janitor at a school. It's quite concerning what's taking place in our neighborhood, even here in Essex Junction, never mind Burlington. But also the amount of stress that's put on the police officers and first responders. I think I have a really clear understanding how to work through. I'm not like perfect at it, but I also have a lot of experience dealing with it on both ends. So I think I could bring a lot, not only to the police department, but delegating from people in the community, get out there and try to be some type of a role model for whether it be young kids or adults, and see if we can come together and work as a team to maybe get the police department out there a little bit more and kind of smile when they're driving around and engage with these kids more. Like at the Five Corners when these kids are crossing the street to go to school. I think the cops should be out on a nice day instead of sitting in their cruiser. That's a perfect time to engage with these kids. Some of these kids, that might be the only engagement that they get other than school. And so that's some of the things I would work on, as well as trying to improve the relationship that kids or adults or any type of human being could have with first responders. Not just the police department, but fire department and EMS as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions?
I was going to ask him what made him interested in serving on the community advisory board, but I think you just answered quite a bit of that. So I guess I would say, are there some things that you think you could do? I wouldn't say immediately, but you have some ideas of things that you could bring to the table for some issues that you listed?
That I can bring to the table. I think it's important to keep clear communication open with everybody involved, whether that's the town of Essex, whether it's the police department, whether it be citizens. You got to get out there and engage. I attended the coffee chat at the coffee shop here at the outlets with the police chief, which was a great opportunity just to see what they may be dealing with on a daily basis. But support, I think, is a big issue. Education. There's a lot of missed opportunities that I think, I'm not saying me as a person alone, but maybe we can build something to get more engagement into the community to understand that not all police officers are bad. And but I think a lot of times I was a fireman my whole career, and my son's a state trooper, and I'm like, smile, like, just smile, engage with these kids because they're afraid of you. A lot of kids are afraid of police officers. And unfortunately, this time and era, it's very difficult to be a police officer. but there's also been a lot of negativity attached to being a police officer, and poor choices that have given them maybe the name that they have at the moment. But there's good cops, bad cops, there's good firemen, bad firemen, there's good people, bad people. So if we can get out and engage in the community and maybe form a picture of what their job really is, entails, I think that maybe could be some of the difference for starters. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a process.
Do you think there will be any conflicts of interest between your professional involvements and family members in law enforcement?
I am retired. I retired from the city of Burlington in 2020. I wanted to engage a little bit more with my kids. My son has 3 deployments under his belt now. And my daughter just graduated from high school. So I wanted to focus a little bit more on family time that I have missed over the years. So I don't think there's any conflict of interest. If anything, it gives me a better understanding having kids in law enforcement as to what they may face on a daily basis. And as being a first responder for the city of Burlington, which runs about 11,000 calls a year, I've seen firsthand what many people are going through. And a lot of it is unfortunate circumstances, whether that be drugs or a poor home life, poor role models, no food, homeless, transient population is huge in Burlington. You have to have a heart, and you got to go into it with your eyes open, not just judge someone by what you're being presented with. It's very important. You got to do that, or else you're going to lose the trust in anybody that you're going to try to approach or try to talk to, if that makes sense to you. So I don't foresee it being a conflict of interest. My son's a state trooper in New Hampshire, not in Vermont. I am officially separated from the city of Burlington. I am retired, and my other son resides in New York. So my daughter will be gone. So no.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any, hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Do you have any ideas or examples of how you would be a conduit for the community for voices that typically have gone unheard? And as you said, those folks who may not feel safe raising their voices as it relates to policing.
Conduit. You gotta be able to find a way to reach those individuals. You really do. They're not going to come looking for you, unfortunately, until they're in really time of need. The mental health crisis right now is just out of control. When you go through the academy, they've gotten better now in this day and age to where it is now actually a part of an academy, and you're being taught and trained on how to deal with individuals now. Whereas before, it wasn't anything that was ever trained on or discussed because it just wasn't that much. Or maybe it was, but back then it wasn't as noticeable as now. So we've really got to try to dig in and see how we can go about making relationships with these people. And I'm not really sure how, but I think having some sympathy with these individuals and trying to build that relationship and engaging with them, whether that be at a food shelf, like a luncheon or some type of a community gathering where you just throw on a lunch and get all these people engaged. I don't have the answers for all of it, but got to start someplace. And I'm not saying that it's not already in place, but I know one thing with the transient population in Burlington, they hate authority. They dislike authority so much, and they're threatened by the badge. They're threatened by the profession. They think nobody wants to hear your problems. You're better than them, and that we need to take that down a little bit and actually sit down and have it and engage in a conversation with them and get to know them a little better. For me personally, when I was on duty, we were busy, but if you make that connection when you get there, it's less likely for them to swing at you, as sometimes they will. They'll attack you, especially if you're taking away their high on whatever drug they may be on. But thinking it's important just to try to build some type of relationship with these people that have a difference in opinion. I don't know if that it's a big basket of many different things that law enforcement and first responders deal with. It's not just a little book that you can hit and make it better tomorrow. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the select board?
No, I started to read through it. It's a lot. I see it's a 2 to 3 year commitment. But I do feel personally that I would definitely be the right person to be on the board. I think I can make a big difference. I think it's important to work and dig hard. And at the end of the day, I think for me, it would bring some fulfillment that now that I don't have my kids being gone, to have a purpose in life and to maybe make a difference in one person's day would be so well worth it. So for me personally, I think this would be good.
Okay, thank you. Any follow-up questions? Okay, thank you so much. We will be going into executive session later to discuss appointments, and either way, you'll be notified.
All right.
Hopefully tomorrow or sooner after that.
All right.
Whether we've chosen you or not. So
Yes, sir.
Or you can hang around till the end of the meeting.
All right. I'll hang up for a few minutes. Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yep. Take care. Okay, so let's see. I do not see Chris joining yet or not. So Dan, on up, introduce yourself and share anything you'd like to help the select board decide.
Thank you. Everybody is very welcoming. We appreciate that. I've not been here before, so I'm a resident of the town and have been since 2004. I live up on Saxon Hollow Drive. I've had 2 children go through the school district from start to finish, and I've got one more who's starting her freshman year. I am a criminal defense attorney. I have an office here in the town and have since 2004. I do exclusively criminal defense, representing many, many people who are indigent, who cannot afford an attorney. I deal with the police from that perspective, which is very different maybe than Mr. Bergeron, but we may complement each other nevertheless. My wife is Erin McGuire. She's the Executive Director of Student Support Services for the Essex Westford School System, and she's also the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. What I would bring to the board is an equity-based lens and regarding policing. I learned about this opportunity about a week ago at the Juneteenth celebration here in the Essex Experience. And I saw you, Dawn, and Tanisha. And I also met Officer Maynard Jackson. And I thought that that I would put my hat in the ring here to see if I could offer some perspective regarding marginalized people in our community and the police in what they're doing and their behavior. I'm going to refer to some notes if I could, please. The first thing that I'll tell you is that I'm surprised that there's not more people here of color. People who are marginalized are not here. I'm another white guy, right? Another cis white guy. It's too bad that we haven't gotten more trans people, more people of color to apply for these positions, because that's what the focus here is. Based on what I read on this flyer here, is you're looking for people to assist marginalized people in the community so that their voices are heard. So I would imagine that our role as a board would be to hear complaints, to investigate complaints, to work as a liaison with the police department in an advisory capacity. And I'm prepared to do that. Although I would step aside if someone came forward who was a person of color or someone else who was marginalized in the community. Just so that you understand, it's important that when we look at what this board, I think, is going to do, is to make sure that people's rights are protected in police interactions, that the police are maintaining or behaving in a way that protects people's rights, that if there's any inequities, that we need to address those inequities. And I look at it as to be an advocate for people who are in the situation with the police, which, I'm familiar a little bit with the chief. I think he's been very progressive. I've sat on a board with him a year or so ago with Sarah George and Tabitha Moore. I like what he's doing, and he's open-minded, and I'd like to be a part of that. Thank you.
Questions?
I'm in trouble because he just took my question and he answered it before I asked it. How would you handle a difference of opinion on the board? In other words, if you wanted the advisory board to go one way and the rest of the board didn't agree with you, how do you handle conflict like that?
So my job is adversarial from start to finish, right? But I would look to be more collaborative here. But many aspects of the law are clear about what's okay and what's not okay. And, you know, I get that there are good people and there are bad people and there are good cops and there are bad cops. If the police are doing their jobs correctly, it makes my job as a criminal defense attorney really easy. They make me work when they don't do what they need to do. If they're not following the law, they're not following the rules, or they're skating close to the edge. And that happens all the time. So yeah, I think I'm not going to be a board member that would just roll over, in other words, in the face of a bunch of other people's comments or concerns. I would hear, but I would still stay true to the equity lens that I'm telling you that that's what I would bring to this board.
Thank you.
Do you have any ideas of ways for the outreach, or things that could be
It does seem to be
put in
because they're not
place?
here.
Right.
The people who are trying to assist and help are not here tonight. And the only conclusion that I can come to is that, and it was mentioned by the fellow ahead of me, is that there's real distrust of the police. I do see the chief making movements and having community gatherings, and he's very actively engaged. So all of that needs to continue. But other than that, I don't have any way to pull these people in other than to show them that we're doing something when a case comes before us.
And then could I just follow that up with a little bit more of, like, and I'm not very familiar with the whole process either, but when these situations are happening, or you know, how do you get the outreach to hear the stories and have them come? Like, do you have ideas of how to get people to come to the board and share their stories? Or, I mean, that's a hard question, I guess, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. I don't know. But I imagine it's going to require some footwork. And if Mr. Bergeron is serving, he's a force, I can tell. Like, he's a magnet. And so we would all work together.
Thanks.
I would ask the same question that I asked Arthur, and that, do you feel there would be any conflict of interest between your professional position and your position on the board?
I do not. Do not. If there was a case that I was presented with taking as a criminal defense attorney, and it was involved with the board, I wouldn't take the case. I deal with conflicts of interest all the time. So, but I don't see that this would be a conflict at all. It would complement what I do every day.
Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
Well, between you, Ethan, and Kendall, you've already answered my questions.
All right. Do you have any questions for us?
This is a brand new thing, right?
Yes.
And where did it spawn from? Like, where did it come from? Was it this select board that came up with the idea, or was it the chief, or?
Essex Best.
Okay. And did the officer who was the community liaison, was he part of that spearhead, do you know, or?
He was after he joined. Essex Best started before Anthony came, right? Anthony, yes. But Anthony joined us after he was hired by Essex Police Department.
I see. Okay.
So yeah, after the murder of George Floyd, there was a significant,
Sure.
response to that.
Yep.
And that was the genesis of us trying to figure out how to move forward with something similar to this. And yeah, the chief was very much involved in getting us in this direction.
What's the commitment in terms of, or do we even know? How often does this board meet? Do you know?
So,
Or is it whatever we want to create?
So it's my understanding that once the board is formed, the board will meet and then decide how often to meet.
I think that's going to be part of the task once the board forms, is to figure out what capacity it has, how often to meet, when to meet, those types of things.
And does the board report to the select board, or does that work?
It'll be an advisory committee, so I think they will provide advice to the select board, provide advice to the police. in all honesty, I think it's going to be, as you said, it's new. So they
Figure it out as we
figure
go.
out as
Yeah.
as it goes,
Okay.
and figure out what's going to be
Gives us a
effective,
lot of
how to serve
latitude.
the community.
Yep.
And just one, I need to make one clarification. Anthony Jackson Miller, he's a civilian. He's with the police department, but he's not an officer. I've just heard officer a couple times. So just
Well, he's an officer in
Clarify
Swanton.
Sorry?
He told me that he worked in Swanton as a police
oh yes,
officer,
but yeah,
that here in Essex,
correct for us.
he has that
for
special
us,
role.
Yeah.
And on the application, they have him listed as Community Affairs and Public Information Officer.
Separate from police
Just-
officer, but yeah,
I-
I can understand. I can understand why
Wording.
there's confusion. I just wanted to make it clear here.
Because I didn't know that either. So
Fair enough.
Okay, any follow-up questions from board members?
Yes,
Ken, go ahead.
I would like to take the opportunity to ask you, since you did mention something that I have been wondering about, is that we don't have the disenfranchised community members coming forward for these board positions. Do you have any suggestions or advice for the board of anything we could do more than we are doing to enhance that or improve that?
When I figure it out, I'll let you know. Honestly, I came here, when I saw the agenda and I just saw 3 names, I was disappointed. Because I was hoping to come to this and see a room full of people of color who were interested in serving on this board. And be willing to step aside for them. So I don't have the answer for you in that regard.
Thank you.
So this wasn't the only session of interviews we've had. Have we had others?
This is the second one.
This is the first one, isn't it? for this?
No.
No,
We
there were
had,
2
we had 2 others.
There's 2
before.
others? Okay, so there are 5 candidates, I guess if, we'll have to try to connect with Chris, but,
And
5
they're also,
candidates
the junction, the city is also going to have 3 people.
Mhm.
So we'll all work together. Right. Thank you.
all right, thank you very
Thank
much. And, as I said before, we will go into executive session later and have our discussion.
Appreciate it.
and-
Thank you for your consideration.
Yep. Thanks for coming out, both of you. Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on to our next business item, which is interview volunteers to serve on Economic Development Commission. We have 3 candidates here. Tanisha, come on up, introduce yourself, and let us know what you're about.
Hello, everyone. Pretty sure everybody's familiar with me. My name is Tanisha Adita. I've served on the economic development for 3 years now. When I first moved here, I was granted the opportunity, so I took it. I'm also with the BEST program, where we just turned into a cab. Also with the Housing Commission. A little bit about me. I have 3 children. 2 live with me right now. I moved them to Vermont. One wasn't happy about it, but he's here. And I'm serving and I just started my own business. And you all know that as well. So I'm a business owner as well. And being on this commission helps me to navigate and look at different opportunities for people that are on the receiving end from the small businesses. We just helped a couple of people with one of the grants. So I personally helped talk her through the grants and how to fill them out. And when they get them, we kind of let everybody know in the community. They have one for BIPOC, also other opportunities for women in small businesses. My idea was to highlight women, single women or married women that are opening businesses. So that was one of the things that I was pushing for. So,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions from board members?
What would you like to see the Economic Development Committee do that they're not already doing?
we need to do more partnerships. We really need to do more partnerships. Saxon, we need to work with them as more. I know we were trying to do something with food trucks there because they're factories, and so people don't have to go out. So we were trying to do that as well. Just a couple of things. Just partnering, making sure that everybody is well aware of us and spread us, getting the word out that we are here for this information and everything. So yeah.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a two-part question?
Go ahead.
The first one you kind of answered, so that's why I have a second part now because I prepared backups today because last meeting I got stumped a couple times. So, but you answered this a little bit, but I was just curious if there's anything besides the grants that you helped with that you achieved that you were proud of on your 3 years.
So I just give different ideas to my colleagues or my other volunteers that we can do with people that are starting new businesses or people that are moving here. I had an idea of doing a packet for all the local businesses, all of the realtors, different little areas where we can give them a packet and they know about us. If they want to start businesses, we need to let them know what businesses or what buildings are available. If they want to come here and, outsource, whatever the case be, that information needs to be known. We have a lot of people interested. However, as you all know, that housing is not all that great.
And then my second part, that was awesome. Thank you for that. Well, my second part was, I've seen it from just my short year and a half here, but what draws your heart to the town of Essex?
I love it here. I actually moved here. I came to visit. And I like it. It's small, it's quiet. Everybody knows everybody. I've been welcomed with open arms. I love, the people. Just getting out in the community. I'm a community person. I like to talk to people. Just period. Information is important for certain people. You need to get that out. If we don't know, they don't know either, so they won't come.
Thank you.
Kendall, any questions?
I would just follow up on Ethan's question a little bit in that what would you consider the highlight of your service on the commission to date?
Just to see people thrive in business, getting that information because of the pandemic. They lost a lot. So we're trying to build back and give back. That's it. Just the information, giving of information. I'll say that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to ask, with everything you have going on, if you have the time, but I've seen you in action and know that you make the time.
Yes, I'll make the time.
But given that you are a business owner, how would you handle any potential conflicts of interest that arise while you would be on the EDC?
I've done a couple because a couple of the grants I wanted to apply for, I discontinued because it needs to go to someone else that needs it. I can do what I need to do. I let nothing get in the way from that. Period.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
No, because I think it's still 3 years, right? And with everything separating, it's 2 for the city and 3 for the town. Because I didn't understand. I know they were explaining it to me, and I was like, "Okay, this doesn't make sense."
Yeah, so when the separation leave into this month, right? We're not. There'll be separate economic development commissions for each of the 2 communities. And we are actually going to have a discussion later about non-residents participating in town town committees and commissions, and so the entities will be
So how are you all doing it? That's what I'm asking. Like, how
So
many people are there going to be?
we haven't had the discussion.
You haven't had it. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it's on the agenda for later tonight, but we will have that discussion before we make our decisions
Okay.
later this evening as to who we want to appoint.
Okay. Okay.
Andy,
Yeah.
our board's still going to stay 5 members for the EDC. I think that's
We're not changing the number of members of the board. Correct. Correct.
So I'll have another question. So with the chair and the vice chair, are those contingent on being in the town?
we haven't had that discussion yet as to whether or not to restrict membership in under our committees or commissions to residents. Once someone is appointed, there's no, the select board doesn't put any restrictions or requirements on who can serve as officers of those
Okay.
committees or commissions.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to know.
Yep, we definitely want to leave all of that to the committees and commissions to decide who their leadership will be.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Now this arose. Would you want to serve for the town of Essex? That's kind of what I was asking. If your heart was in,
Yes,
the town
but
of Essex,
I
or would
was
you be
told.
interested in the city?
Yeah, I was told that I can only do a certain amount because I'm the city, and the town would be. Yeah, that's why I'm asking questions because I wasn't clear. I know they've told me about certain things, but I wasn't clear on any of it. So I just was making sure.
And so we currently have a number of committees and commissions that have non-resident members.
Okay.
And again, our discussion later will
Yeah, 'cause-
determine what we want to do about that.
Okay. Yeah, because when you all separated, everything separated, I was like, where am I going? So yeah, I was a little nervous. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I can just add one more thing, I don't know if the city is going to have an economic development commission or anything like that. So, the select board is looking out for the town's economic development commission. Town still intends to have one, 5 members, I think, is the goal, and conversation later on about residency.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's a very good, no idea whether the city's going to. All right. Thank you, Tanisha. So next on the list is Paulina Thompson. Paulina, I see that you are online. Go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to turn on your camera if you'd like. Introduce.
Can you see me? I do have the camera on. Can you see me?
Yes, we can, and we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Paulina Thompson, and I moved to Essex 5 years ago on Thursday. I am actually originally from Mexico. I've been in Vermont for almost 14 years. I have 2 girls in founders school. I was told about this position by Leonora. Guess we're both Mexican, so she thought of me. I have my own business. I have a bakery from home. I mostly make cookies. I don't know if you saw them. I made some last year for the Juneteenth celebration. And yeah, I guess that's why they thought of me. Like the person before us was saying, I think they just want more of a mix in the community, more, more different races so we can all put our input. But yeah, I don't know much about all this whole thing, but I'm here to learn. And if I, gotta start somewhere, I can help somebody, that would be great.
Right. Thank you. Questions from board members?
So you don't really know what the Economic Development Committee is.
I do. I read about it. I was,
Okay.
yeah.
What do you feel you could bring to that committee as a business owner?
I guess I will say, like Tatanisha was saying, like maybe just explore more around and maybe create a directory. I don't know if that's a thing that already exists, but I didn't know. I don't know what like businesses are around. I don't know what's coming to the town, what new businesses are. It's like I feel like if we have more information about that. I was contacted by Jean a few months ago about that grant that Tanisha was talking about, which I never heard of. Like she just sent me all the information and she's like, oh, they're creating this for BIPOC small businesses. And then I went into the website and I was looking at it. I was like, how do I know about these things as a business owner? I mean, she contacted me because she saw my cookie somewhere, but no, because like maybe if she didn't see my cookie, she wouldn't have known that I'm from a BIPOC community and all that. So it's like, I would like to know more information about this. I'm not on the website all the time. I don't know where to see this kind of help. I mean, it is help that we small business and all businesses can get. And I, of course, apply for it. And I mean, hopefully I can get it. But if I don't, it's still, you know, it's good to know that that kind of help is out there, and we need. I don't know if we need to reach out or someone needs to reach out, or we go find this information somewhere to just. And I would like other businesses to know about this too. Like, hey, look, this is happening. Maybe you can get help. Maybe you can all be a community and help each other. Just maybe just by word and saying this business does this. This you can go to this person. They'll help you with this other thing. Like, I don't know much about it, so I think that will be something I would like to be involved in.
Thank you.
Ethan.
Sorry, Don stole part of my question, but the rest of my question was going to be, I don't know how to say this. Do you have like enough free time to, commit to the meetings and maybe possibly do some outreach? I know, some of the work that goes in with the EDCs, like, in a lot of our other committees is they assign like, mini tasks and people go out and do outreach, like the business directory, for years past was trying to be developed. So I just didn't know in that sense of volunteerism, if you had, the free time to do some of the legwork and some of the ideas that you had mentioned, and if there's any other ideas, of things that we could make better, of what's currently going on in the EDC. I know you haven't probably attended a lot of the meetings, but there's quite a few irons in the fire right now. So I was just curious if you were, number one, aware, and number two, if you had any time constraints that would restrict that.
No, I think I was explained that it wouldn't. I mean, I work from home, so I do mostly. I don't have a bakery. I don't, it's like I do everything from home, mostly because of my girls. But I always find the time to do. I mean, it's not what I was explained to me. It's like it doesn't really take that long. But if it is a few hours a day, I can definitely do that. My husband works from home most days too, so I have help that could help me if I need to leave the house or do something. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kendall, question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to phrase it. Do you have a particular item economically that would have benefited you as a small business owner that you would change if you got on the commission?
I guess no. I just like to help. If like the person was saying before me, like if I can help people in my community as well, like I try to always like if you speak Spanish, I speak Spanish obviously and in English. So it's like some people do not speak English that well, but they need help. So I'm always willing to go and translate. I'm always willing to help somebody translate anything. Like I do want to just be able to send that help, send that information to people who need it, and be there for them.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Tracy, got a question?
Yeah. So as a business owner, if there was something in front of the EDC that was a conflict with your own business, or something that would benefit you personally, how would you react in that situation?
I think I'm not really, I like to help, and if I can hear all the sides of a conversation or a discussion, I'm always willing to find a solution for everything. I'm not really closed up to the one thing. So I'm always open to first listen. Like I feel like most of us just need to be heard sometimes what our problems are, and I'm open to that.
All right, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Good. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we will thank you for stepping forward, and thank you for taking the time to meet with us.
Yeah, of course.
we will we'll be having a closed door session later this evening to talk about who we want to appoint, and we'll let you know tomorrow whether you've been chosen.
Thank you.
So much. Okay, let's see. Do we have Tim Mack? Let's see him online. So then I guess we will move forward. We're skipping over the Energy Committee, as we mentioned earlier. So we have Treffer Williams, who is, come on up, Treffer. You're interviewing for 2 positions, and rather than have you come up twice, I think we would just cover it with one discussion.
Okay.
Introduce yourself and share whatever you'd like with the board to help us with our decision making.
Well, my name's Trevor Williams. I live on Catella Road here. I've lived here about 5 years now. With my wife Nancy, and I was a professor of civil engineering at Rutgers University for about 35 years, and I have a PhD in civil engineering, and I've did a lot of research in various areas. My specialties were construction management, transportation engineering and planning, and the last few years I've been doing railroad engineering. But and I've published a couple books about construction management, and but I'm retired, and I just felt like I'd like to give back to the community. I've had a lot of different experiences in a lot of different areas. I used to do, at one time I did traffic engineering, timing traffic signals, installed a computerized traffic control system, did a lot of research and using artificial intelligence for railroad problems and also for predicting construction costs. And I could go on, but I've done a lot of different things. I think that's the highlight. So, I've published like 100 academic papers and things like that. So. And, I was on the planning board of Princeton, New Jersey for about 5 years. And that was an interesting place because zoning was very restrictive, and a lot of issues. They had this thing that happened there where the lots were, people were turning their houses, people were buying houses, tearing them down, and then building a bigger house sideways on the lot. And that got to be a big problem there. That was kind of interesting. Whereas the front door did not face the street. And it didn't look very good. But, people wanted to do that kind of stuff, have a big house. I think I've hit the high points.
Okay.
I guess my first question would be, have you read through our new town plan, or the town plan?
I have.
And how do you feel your expertise would contribute to it?
Well, mainly I think on the transportation side, I have expertise, as I said, in traffic engineering, highway engineering. I've worked with the design of roads. Let's see. And of course, I have the experience in Princeton where there was some interesting issues. And I think I understand planning law. I took planning courses way back when. And I just think it's important that, planning be done in a, a systematic way, as opposed to we lived in New Jersey for 30 years, and there's a lot of places developed really not very well there. It was just little strip mall after strip mall, and it's not a very attractive thing. So I would like to see, you can see that things are growing here, but the possibility that it can be done in such a way that's satisfies everyone, business owners, but is also pleasant to look at and that kind of thing. I think that's important.
Ask another one.
Yep. Go ahead.
And given that you're applying for both zoning and planning, this is two parts. Where do you think you would be most comfortable working? And do you understand that we're switching to a DRB? And how would you be willing to participate in a DRB if appointed?
DRB?
Development.
Design Review Board.
Development.
Development Review Board, sorry.
Sure. Now, the first part was you asked me.
You're applying for both zoning and planning.
Yes.
So, given your background, where are you most comfortable?
Probably planning, but I was told I had originally just applied for planning, but then I went to a meeting and was told they desperately needed someone for zoning, so I applied for that as well. I have some experience with zoning.
Thank you.
Well, since Don asked everybody's questions, I am gonna expand on that question Don asked, because that was actually one of the things that I have asked others and am interested in asking you. So right now the planning commission is also our review board. So they review applications and approve
Right.
them. So moving forward in the future, if taken by legislator, our charter is set to change to have a development review board, which would solely do reviews, and the planning commission would solely just focus on planning.
Yes.
So when I should say if and when that happens, would you be interested in staying on the planning commission as far as the aspects of planning, or would you be more interested in the review process and the approval?
Well, maybe.
Or both?
Yeah. In Princeton, before I was on the planning board, they had what they called the Site Plan Review Advisory Board, which did all the site plans. And and then I got on the planning board, but I think I was more comfortable that I could kind of weigh in on the engineering aspects of people want to do a development, the traffic impact, again, there's the zoning, but also just that I left that out, that I work for two different traffic engineering firms, one in New Haven and one in Boston, and we used to do these studies of the traffic impact studies where you'd try to figure out how much traffic that a particular development was going to generate. And so I know about that. I know about paving. I know about, I know about construction, and about how one of my big interests was construction contracts. And, sometimes they affect, what gets built. And maybe I should have had some notes. I think I'm starting to ramble, but
That's okay.
oh, okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So you like the planning, or because like the review when the review process happens, right? So the planning would just be like what the town sees for plans, and as the plans come in, but then the review board would be more of the engineering side of, hey, we don't like this because of the traffic, or
I mean
things like that. So.
Yes, the review board probably that speaks to my expertise. I should also say I'm a professional engineer. So yes, but I'm also interested in the kind of the broader, what happens. We like to see
right now. That's all we have is the everything. So
right.
I was just curious for future of if you're aware of the split and that is going to happen, hopefully. So, I'm all set. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Kendall, any questions?
Would you care to share over your long and distinguished career one particular highlight in relation to planning, development, review that is applicable to the position on the board?
Well, I know that for some reasons, let's see, planning. I'd like to think that we did some good things in Princeton to keep from sort of kind of willy-nilly development, and I remember kind of feeling that I had done something to help maybe Princeton develop in a little more of a rational manner, and naturally there's a lot of pressure there. There's all sorts of developers, wanting to build things way out of scale with what the existing town was, and so I consider that maybe planning wise. But yes, thanks for saying my career is distinguished. Thank you.
Yes, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
During your tenure on the planning board in New Jersey, did you have any particular items that came up that were very contentious, and how did you resolve them?
Well, the one that always sticks in my mind is that there was a vacant lot, and people in that neighborhood, and it was an extremely wealthy neighborhood, had taken to using that lot as a park. But then the people who own the land, they wanted to subdivide the land and sell that property. So people, it's nice if you could do it, but the main thing was that Princeton didn't own the property. It became very contentious, but I mean that was the bottom line, was that Princeton didn't own it and couldn't turn it into a park. And but it got very vocal, and I always remember that one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tracy.
So understanding that the Planning Commission currently reviews applications, eventually there are plans is with the legislature's blessing that will move to a development review board. If an application came to you that you personally disagreed with, what would you rely on to guide your thought process and a decision?
Well, that's interesting. I asked the planner for Princeton about that, and the thing always stuck with me that, okay, you might not like it, but if it meets all the planning laws and the zoning, you have to approve it, right? Because there's no laws being violated, or no zoning violation, no planning violation. And unless you can show that, I was told that, well, it's the United States and it's capitalism, and you can't just stop people from doing things. That's what I was told way back when. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
No, I don't think so. How often do the two committees meet?
So the planning commission meets twice a month. I believe one meeting is dedicated to planning, the other is dedicated to development reviews generally. And the zoning board meets as needed.
Okay.
Is it once a month? And Tom's giving me a
Well,
once a month.
I'm retired, so that is not a problem.
So I do have a question though. So you've applied for 2 seats.
Yes.
Is this is your inclination one or the other, or are you actually interested in both?
Oh, I do both. I mean, I'm interested in zoning and the planning. I suppose if it came down to one or the other, it'd probably be the planning. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Right. You've heard the spiel that we'll come back. We're meeting offline later to discuss appointments, and
Yes.
we'll let you know.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you for stepping forward, and that gets us to the end of that business item. But I've been told that Chris Harvey has joined, who was interested in viewing for the Community Advisory Board. I know we passed that agenda item. So I guess, does the board feel about circling back and allowing Chris to interview?
Are we rescheduling all the others, or are we making decisions?
No, this
tonight
is
for
it
everything?
tonight.
Okay. Then yeah.
So we're okay with,
Yep.
with circling back to this? Okay, so I understand that the name MacBook Pro online is Chris Harvey. Chris, if you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and turn on.
Yes, I think that's me.
And let us know or share anything you'd like with the select board that would help us make a decision regarding appointment.
Sure. Shall I turn on my video?
If you're comfortable with that, yeah, go ahead.
That's fine. Hang on. You got me?
Yep, we can see you and we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. I totally got mixed up with the dates. For a reason in my head, it was Wednesday. But anyway, thank you for accommodating my lateness. I am interested in this. So my name's Chris Harvey. I am a new resident of Essex. I've been here for 2.5 months, but I am not a new resident of Vermont. I grew up in South Burlington and Underhill. I left Vermont in 1988 to go to university, and just returned after lots of places around the country and overseas. The most recent 17 years I spent in Saigon, Vietnam, and built a business there with my wife, and that business ended, and we decided we wanted to move closer to my parents, who are here in Essex and South Burlington. So that's why we're here today. Why am I here talking to you today is another question. Well, my wife is Vietnamese, and she's just a recent immigrant to America, and was scared to death of crime in America. She would see in the Vietnamese press about the gun crime, it's very sensationalized over there, as I guess it is here as well. So when we moved here, and I was checking out the Essex Police website, and I saw a Citizens Police Academy. So I signed up for it. Because I thought, well, I can learn something about the police and learn about what's happening, and tell my wife, we have 4 children between 3 and 9 also. And it was actually a wonderful experience. We just finished a couple of weeks ago. And then I learned about this opportunity. And I'll share a few things with you guys about the Citizens Police Academy. I learned a great deal. And I was really impressed with the professionalism of the police and their honesty and their genuine wanting people to understand what they do. And one example, and it was really amazing, if you guys don't know this, is this whole use of force. I don't know the word for it, heuristic, if you will. There's very strict rules governing use of force and what they can do in different circumstances, and which I didn't know. And one of the ideas that I had, if I were to serve on this board, is to try to get this out into the community to understand these rules. And the police really, I was convinced they really do abide by these and do their best to follow these rules. So that's why I'm here tonight. I think that I can, I'm certainly enthusiastic, and I'm enthusiastic about a safe and fair community in Essex for my family with 4 kids and everybody else, which is why I'm here tonight.
All right, thank you. Questions from board members? God, you've been starting.
I'm going to let them go first because I'm not sure how I want to word my question. And that way I don't take away anybody else's
Everybody's
question.
going to steal your question.
I'm curious if you have any ideas, as I know you had mentioned, your story, and thank you for sharing that with us. But I'm curious if you have any ideas on ways to eliminate the stigma, whether it's outreach or it's public events, or I'm just curious if you have any ideas on more ways that the community advisory board could create to help folks have that relationship.
So the stigma, you mentioned stigma. Could you?
Like, you said that your wife was terrified of the crime, and I don't know if that was related towards the police department or just in general of.
Just in general. So I wanted to understand what was happening with crime in Essex and in Vermont. And I thought a great way to do that was to join the Citizens Academy, which was a great way to do that, actually.
Yeah.
So
I guess I'll reword my question to, I'm sorry for the misunderstanding on my there's instances in Essex where the relationship between the police department and the community hasn't always been the best.
okay.
So how would you interact with those voices and those people and bring it for the board or the board as a whole to resolve the situation with the police department?
Well, absent any specific occurrence, I'm not sure which instance you're talking about. I learned about a few when I was at the Citizens Police Academy, but I can just say a couple of general statements that I think that I've found in my career. And by the way, I've worked in a cross-cultural environment for 17 years in Vietnam. And I found that, you sometimes you're dealing with people from another culture, different background, you bring a set of beliefs or understandings you're not even aware of. It's like a fish in water, but and that may be the case here. I'm not sure. But what I found to be really important is both sides understand each other. I think the community needs to understand clearly what is the job of the police, when should they call the police. I think the police can maybe make more public appearances. I'm just shooting from the hip here, by the way. But I think it's really important. I was really impressed with the professionalism of the Essex police, at least what I saw, and their willingness to share. And I think people need to I think trust is built under transparency and history. People need to understand what the police are doing and why they're doing it. They need to understand in what cases can the police escalate force, and when somebody is doing some certain thing. For example, let me give you guys an example of what I learned. If someone the police is interacting with is cooperating, the police can't put their hands on. I mean, they really can't use any force at all. If they begin not cooperating, that's called passive resistance. That's another level up. And then if they're actually assaulting the police officer or threatening to assault the police officer, then the police officer can do certain things. I mean, I learned a lot, and I've learned about, and I've read about in the press about certain incidences. And now that I know what I know, I'm like, oh, okay, the police officer was out of line there, or maybe there's more facts we need to understand here. So, okay, let me summarize. I think the community needs to understand better what the police are doing and how they do it. And specifically, a lot of maybe questions are around use of force. And I think the community needs to understand better when the police use force and when they don't, and under what circumstances. Does that answer your question? And I think trust is going to be built on openness and both sides understanding each other and a history of it. Once you have a crisis, it's too late to build trust. You should have been building it the whole time.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't think I had a solid single answered question there for it. Just kind of was curious on your thoughts behind the
Okay, those are some
process and the whole deal on the board. So thank you.
I don't know if you got a question.
You answered my question
All right.
pretty much. Thank you.
Don or Tracy?
Sure. So what I'm hearing you say is that education is very important aspect of
it's
this.
super important. Yeah.
So understanding that there are community members who may be hesitant or even fearful to reach out directly to the police, what do you see as steps to work on that education and trust component?
Well, the first is understanding, why are they fearful? I don't, why are they fearful? Have they had an experience? Have they had experience with the police that have been scary? Why are they fearful about that? I think that's important to understand. I think another important thing to communicate to the community is under what circumstances should they be calling police, and what can the police do in certain circumstances. I mean, I can even envision an FAQ, like when should I call the police? Can I call the police when I have a dispute with my neighbor? Can I or whatever it is? I mean, when is an appropriate time to call the police? What would be inappropriate behavior from the police, for example? I think, again, I think taking the Citizens Police Academy really demystified the police for me. My only police encounters have been speeding and traffic tickets. But until this, they were kind of a black box to me. Like I'd feel pretty intimidated by being pulled over by the police before. But now I would feel, okay, I understand how these guys operate. I understand they have rules that they follow very judiciously, actually, I thought. At least that was my impression from taking the Citizens Police Academy. And I think the community needs to understand this. It's really a marketing problem, fundamentally, talking from business terms. How do you get the community to understand what the police are about and how they can help you? And what are the police's goals, and how do those goals, how do they overlap with the goals of the community? That's really important. Everybody wants a safe community. It's called picking the high level. Like everyone wants a safe community. Everyone wants lower crime. Can this fear be addressed? If we understand the root fear, can we address it somehow? Either through, maybe something bad really did happen. I don't know. We can get to the bottom of that, but understand what's causing it, and how can the police be more transparent about their behavior, and so people know what to expect when they call the police. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
As a member of the community advisory board, what would be your first step in getting this information out, begin to build this trust?
That's a great question. It's a marketing problem, like I said before. I don't know, events, having police appear more human and maybe answer questions in certain community events, for example, might help. One of the things that frustrated me is, I mean, okay, again, I'm from a business background. I think in business terms, I was a little bit surprised that the Essex Police, they put an incredible amount of effort in the Citizens Police Academy. I mean, really amazing amount of effort. It was three hours a night for like 8 weeks, and they prepared very well, and they were really on it with their presentations, and they thought through what they wanted to tell us. And there were only like 10 people in the class. So they put all this effort for just to reach 10 people. And I was thinking, wow, this information needs to get out there a lot further. I mean, that's a marketing problem. I'm trying to think of different marketing channels. I mean, if people are online, there's Facebook, there's advertisements, there's bus stops. You have to think about some simple marketing messages. Maybe there's a QR code on it that would direct you somewhere where you could get more information about what the police do. But you have to really arouse in the target segment, like, what do they care about? And let's speak to that thing. And try to get this information out there. That would take some doing. I can't answer that question right off the top of my head, but I'd want to figure out where are these people living. And when I say living, I don't mean living physically necessarily, but where are they spending time, and how can we reach these people with some simple messages? Because another thing I've learned in marketing is messages need to be very simple and repeated again and again and again. And you can think of all these marketing jingles like "Have it your way" at McDonald's or whatever, but think about what are the fundamental things you really want to communicate about the police that people need to know, and then repeat them again and again.
And I just want to share for your information, I believe that the police department set how many students they wanted in their first class, but because it was so successful, I read that they are going to do it again. So thank you for your input. I think that's all.
Yeah, it was really, I cannot say enough good things about the quality of the presentations and the depth of the knowledge that I got, especially the one standout for me, I think, in terms of the community is the use of force presentation. There was a dashboard they gave us. They called it looked like a car dashboard, and it was like different like drive or reverse, or and there were different levels of force suitable for different things, and they were really careful about it. And we talked about some different examples, and from the real world, about how officers had not behaved properly. And now that I understand this stuff, this is really demystified police to me. Like if a police officer goes up to somebody and just shoves him, and this person is being cooperative and is not being aggressive, that's completely out of line. And people need to know that the Essex police are not going to do that. I mean, they shouldn't do that. They were very careful about it. They were really, they really respected those rules of force. And I think people need to understand that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Do you have any questions for us?
Yes. Thank you for asking.
Uh-huh.
I do. Here's a big one. What does the board see as the CAB's role, and what is your design? How would you define your desired outcome of a successful CAB?
Are you want me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, this is a whole new concept, Chris. You're going to be sort of designing it as you go, but it is to build a bridge between the police department and the public to improve communication. So as you said, people are not afraid to communicate with the police department. But so people would be free to come to CAB to express a concern, and then you would discuss it as a committee, and if it warrants, then you would bring it to Anthony and to the police chief.
Okay.
My understanding of where they are right now. But as this grows, the roles can change.
Well, here's an idea.
Understanding of the role.
Here's an idea that, this is one thing I used to do when I managed people, is you have a session that's called Ask Me Anything. And so the chief, I used to do this, and I used to do it. People could actually ask me anything in person, or they could submit an anonymous Google form to ask me anything. And it really was anonymous. I didn't know who submitted these forms. And then I would answer everything. I'd answer every last question, no matter what. I would answer them. And if I wasn't able to answer, I'd say I can't answer that. But what about some kind of forum where you gather members of the community that you want to address, and Chief Hogue gets in front of them, and you say, okay, ask Chief Hogue anything. Ask him anything. And they ask him. Right? That's an idea. That would really build trust, I think.
Yeah. I believe that's the purpose of his coffee hours that he's holding right now. So
okay.
Good idea.
But are those coffee hours in accessible time? I'm not sure. But anyway, there's just some ideas.
Other questions?
Okay, that's my big question. Thank you, guys, for your attention, and thank you for your service.
And thanks for stepping forward, Chris. You may not have heard mentioned earlier that we will be going into executive session later in this meeting to discuss appointments, and should we come to a decision, you'll be informed by town staff tomorrow, or you can hang around to the end of the meeting and find out then.
Is that something I can observe? Actually, no, you guys have your deliberations. That's fine.
After we have our private discussions, we will come back to the meeting to make a motion if we, assuming that we do appointments, and we should be doing a bunch of appointments tonight. So it's up to you whether you want to stick around or.
Okay, thank you. It depends on whether my kids are going to come in here and start grabbing me.
Yeah.
Welcome to Essex.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Okay, so let's move on to our next business item, which is 5H, discussion and potential action on Town of Essex logo survey results. So who's taking this one?
That is Tammy.
Tammy, it's on, right?
Did you skip G?
There's Tammy.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tammy.
I wasn't ready for you to be skipping G.
Yeah, either.
Here I'm back here tonight to present to you some logo survey results. So based on our last meeting that I attended with all of you in May, you know, the discussion was based around let's get some feedback from the community on the front end of things. And so we put together a survey that provided the logos that I had presented at the last meeting, and also some questions that folks could answer, optional questions they could answer. They came in different parts so that if somebody was voting and they didn't like any of the options, we asked them questions as to what parts of this would you change? What color would you change? Would you use different elements? That sort of thing. And then we had a couple of questions at the end that we asked all participants. So if they did vote for one of the logos, or if they didn't vote for the logos, we were still asking them the overall questions like, what do you think of when, you know, of Essex, when you think of Essex? So in your packet, you have the responses. We had 327 responses. And of those responses, and I should say that that went out in the newsletter. It was on our website. It went out on our social media. I'm trying to remember, Front Porch Forum. So we had several different ways that we did send this link out to folks. Of the 327 responses, 73% favored a new logo, 17% favored keeping the original logo, and 9% did not like any of the options. There, I think, was based on some of the feedback we received, I think there was some confusion from some who participated in that some of the answers are clearly related to the city and not the town. And then some of the people that were favoring to keep the original logo were just simply saying as a response that they just didn't want to spend the money on rebranding. But overall, there's 73% of the responses are in favor of going forth with the new logo. And then from that, in the packet, you can see how the votes played out for each of the 5 different drafts that we sent out to everybody. The one that received the most votes was the full color. And then second came in was the mountains and water. And then there were the last 3 were different variations. Looking at, and then Greg, I think Greg's sharing that up there right now. And then I shared in there, it's kind of lengthy, but hopefully you've had a chance to look at all of the different responses from everybody, which is also included in the packet. Based on those responses, I had a discussion with Greg. I took the one that scored the most votes and then added a couple of variations to include some of the most of the feedback that we received, which was, you know, we'd like to see trees was one of them. Another was more prominent, you know, like we want to see Indian Brook. And another comment was basically, we don't have that style of barn. Let's have a gambrel style. So I did a couple of versions of the colored logo, just changed some of those options. And Greg has those up on the screen now. The first one, essentially, I added a storefront. There was some of the feedback was, you know, please add us. We want to see the stores and the Essex Center on here. So I added a storefront, windows, and arch on the water tower to make it more distinctively the water tower, and raised the eye level of the water. Basically, just took that whole background and moved it up so that the water could be seen. And change the style of barn. And in the second option, I have a different color for the water tower, added some windows and doors, and a greater emphasis on the trees and the water. These are just a couple of options. You know, we have many different versions of many different logos that we went through to get to this point. Including, you know, I did a couple of versions with knives, with the Saxon knives. I did, trying to even think, some of the other possibilities that I had in my head, and they're leaving me right at the moment. But this seems to be bringing it into the same elements are repeated through all of the comments: water, mountains, views, rural, country, stores, so there's a lot in the trees. Those were a lot of the comments I was seeing. So I guess at this point, I'm presenting all of this to you in the hopes that either we can make a final selection, or possibly take one of the versions that we have here, and give me some direction as to, would you like to have this, but you want something a little bit different on it, or let's just scrap this and just go in another whole direction. And if that's the feeling that we're going to do, I guess we need to know that too. So, and I don't know if Greg has any other comments on this at all to add.
Tammy, the only thing I'd add is that Tammy and I spoke a little bit, and want to get your feedback today. I think the other option that Tammy and I discussed that she didn't mention was, do we do a runoff and take 3 or 4 logos and put those back out for vote and feedback and try to go ahead from there. But at this point, just wanted to share the results of the survey and the feedback we got, and hear how you'd like to go forward with that.
All right. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Greg. Comments from board members? Questions?
Well, you can stop looking at me. You guys can ask questions.
So we have to start over there. So I'm trying to think back to how the survey was laid out and worded. And I see this statement, 73% favor a new logo. Was there a very direct question that says, do you want a new logo?
I think the 73% were out of the logos that were presented. 73% liked one of the new logos.
Okay.
Tammy, correct me if I'm wrong in that.
That's correct.
Okay. Because when I was looking at that with 327 responses, breaking it down, only 23% voted for the top one.
About that.
So I'm looking at it that way. I'm not sure that that's a very clear, this is the one.
No, and that's why we said,
Okay.
do you want to take a few of the ones that kind of had the most votes and do sort of a runoff of some sort?
Yep.
I think what we're trying to get at, and what Tammy put in the memo, is that out of the options that are presented, 73% of the people are happy with one of those new options.
Gotcha.
Any other questions or comments? Kendall, go ahead.
My comment was I like the logo number 2. I would suggest that you change the barn style.
She did.
Is that it? There was a number of comments that they wanted a different roof on the barn.
Kendall, when you say logo number 2, do you mean out of the original ones or the
The
modified ones that Tammy had?
The 2 options that she has here that she has modified based on all the comments.
Thank you.
There were a lot of comments on green and gold, and that's it. Just make sure there's some green and gold in it, and change the barn style, and I'll vote for number 2.
Other comments? Ethan, go ahead.
So I want to start by thanking Tammy for all of her hard work on this. I do want to add that I really like number 1. I've seen both styles. Barns and Essex. There's one on Towers Road that's like the other style. But I did read a lot of the feedback, and I don't mean to say this the wrong way, and I really do appreciate all of your work, Tammy, but I think that we need to stop changing this logo around, take the ideas, show them some of these that we've created, and send it to a graphic designer. It's very, very minimal money to have a logo created in a way that aren't shapes from computer generated apps. I think if we took all of the feedback and these 2 logos, maybe a couple others that meet the criteria from the feedback in a more analytic way, send it out there, have them create us 4 or 5 options. I'd really like to see, I'd like to see 65% of people agree on one logo. I'd say 50 would be awesome. And maybe we can make a decision on 50, but 23% with the feedback that we got. I mean, when was the last time the logo was changed in Essex? This isn't going to be something that we change every 3 years. We're reprinting everything. We're making shirts. We're rebranding the entire town. We can't do it on a logo that has 23% approval. I just don't think that's feasible. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Tammy, for your hard work. And I was fascinated to read how many people wanted the fairgrounds and the railroad station and railroad tracks on there. I was like, excuse me, those are not part of the town. But anyway, I don't understand what on your first one, what that background is supposed to represent. So a lot of people wanted the Essex experience, the buildings where you've got the blue tower. I don't understand what that background is supposed to represent in Essex. You guys,
Are you talking about the blue or
are
the
those
like?
are those buildings? Because it looks like you've got another silo and another barn back there.
No, I think if you look at like the logo we have now, there's like a little city in there. That's what this is, or a little town, I guess you could say. Not a city is probably the wrong words, but in the original logo that we have now, I don't think we had that. It's not in this document, Greg. But on our logo that we have, if we had a picture, yeah, it's not on there, but there is there's the mountains. You see the mountains, and then there's it's very, very little. So that's basically taking that and just kind of trying to take the town part of things and bring that into a more reasonable size so that you can see it. I don't even know if people even notice that in the current logo, that there's a little.
Those buildings are representing the buildings in the town. Is that what you're saying to me?
That's the town. Yep.
It's the developed part of the town and
The developed part of the town.
rural part.
Yep.
Versus a rural town.
They're not based on specific, apart from the water tower, they're not based on certain block or certain images, but give me a moment and I can pull up the current logo.
And
It's more to be represented. So this is the current logo that's on our town website right now.
Yeah.
So that
And then the very
the thing at
center of the
Yellow Brick Road is the
Gus's town.
is the image that Tammy says she
Blow it up a little bit.
she kind of took from and put it in there.
I mean,
I
just see the. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
I don't know. This doesn't really say much about the town I live in right now, to tell you the truth. Me.
And that was kind of the problem that I had or have. Is it was I love the idea, right? Like I went through a logo design. I drew something on a piece of paper that looked like my almost 2-year-old or almost my 2.5-year-old drew with a crayon, right? And somebody made something spectacular for me. And when I see this, it's not that the work isn't there or like awesome. It's just like I feel like the shapes of the buildings is something that I made with, the Microsoft Excel and in computer class. It doesn't represent anything that I know. You know what I mean? They're just blobs. Like I love the barn. The barn has detail, and that's where I'm not saying that Tammy doesn't have the right design idea. I just think that we might need some actual detail in the logo if we're gonna go the route of having a town. You know what I mean? Like if you're gonna go just a barn and a lake, just do a barn and a lake. But if you want to have a town there, because personally, I see the barn, the water tower. I see a barber shop attached to a church farm, kind of. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't distinguish anything in the buildings. Like the other buildings are great, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. But I think from the feedback and the voting, I mean, it's pretty clear that we're not anywhere near to making a decision. When was the last time, do you remember that Essex remade their logo?
I don't remember when it was, but I think we did approve that one. It was just shown. I don't remember when that was.
Yeah.
But
Sometime in the last 15 years?
I've only been on the board 9.
Oh, no, okay.
So,
Might have been longer.
I mean, because they wanted the Essex experience according to the comments. They wanted a lot of Saxon Hill, and I don't see anything like with trails or hiking or any of that the people are asking for. I mean, that's what I read in the comments anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? There's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
327 responses, which is a pretty good response. And yeah, that there wasn't one that stood out and said this, 50% of the people or 65% of the people, but that's tough to be expected, I think, when you have 6 options and people are looking at those different ones. I think when you have 300 plus comments, it's hard to get everything in there. And so,
I mean, I do like these two better than the original ones that were presented because they have more detail and I can see it. But it still doesn't say to me, "Come to Essex."
Mm.
This is Essex. I don't see that. And
I think that's part of what we're asking is, do you want us to start over? Do you want us to build off of the couple 2, 3, 4, 5 that got some better feedback and take that out again? Sounds like some of you are okay with some of the ones here. Some of you would like to try again. So yeah, I guess we're just trying to figure out what the next step is at this point, based on the feedback we've got. And again, it's tough to get all 320 comments.
And I understand that.
I'd like to see a couple $100 spent and see some options of a graphic design, personally.
We actually did spend over $1,000 with a graphic designer who came back with some that didn't pass the mustard with our committee. And then with these, I had, I know that these do look like they're just kind of cookie cutter, but they are actually my own artwork. So I probably would not be inclined to just hand them over to somebody. When you do this type of graphic work, you can go in different directions. So there's like the possibility, like you can even see some hand drawn. Some people will actually just draw a picture, and there's logos that are just a picture of a setting or something in particular that you want. Then you can go as far extreme as just being very abstract, and you can do that very simple type of look when you think of things like Pepsi Colas, just got like, just a circle. So it's all in how, detailed you want to get with your design. I think I was trying to strike something in between detailed and enough so that we can still use it in all of the different places that we need to use it. Because actually, marketing wise, we're going to do more than just throw it on a website. We're going to be putting it on clothing and on trucks and tiny little business cards and a lot of different things. So I think I was trying to do something a bit with, let's try to keep it simple, but at the same time, let's add the trees in there that have the detail. Let's add the barn that has the detail. Just trying to find that balance. And I did have these all looked at by a professional graphic designer who gave me a lot of useful tips to be able to get to where I'm at. And that was pro bono. We didn't have to pay for that. So if we were to give this over to a graphic designer, I would want to be specific as to what it is we're asking for. Again, if you look in the world of logos, there's many, you can do things that have no color. They're just a black and white drawing. I mean, there's the array of what you could be asking for could be huge, not to mention the 347 responses that we've gotten, which Greg was pointing out was, hopefully we're honing in on a few elements. I'm not sure we can get everything. I don't know if it makes sense to put everything. One of the comments was to make the plow fields into the Saxon knives, and I'm not sure if everybody would get that. Maybe that person does. Maybe other people may say, what are these Saxon knives? I don't understand. So you're always going to have that difference in opinion. You're always going to have, I guess not just a difference in opinion, but a difference in taste. So I'm hopeful that we can, move forward with something that everybody's going to feel like, okay, maybe it's not the one I picked, but I'm very happy with this. But again, at the same time, I don't want everybody moving forward just with something that they don't like either. So, if we were to move forward with another graphic designer, we would have to certainly, pay for that. And I would want to, I guess we should know for sure exactly what it is what our ask is. What are we asking for?
Hello.
You would indulge me for just a minute. Actually, the logo that I thought was the most effective was the funky one you had with a dot and two colors, the water and the lake. You had Essex beside it. And my wife, who's way smarter than me, said that just put beside that Experience Essex, and there's your branding and your logo all in one, because everybody knows where the Essex Experience is. So I just throw that out there. But everybody's worried about having a picture that speaks to everything with Essex, but really a lot of towns and states and everything have a logo that has a single word like vacation land or something that speaks to the people if they associate that.
Yeah.
So I would just,
You mean the blue and white, this one?
yes.
And then put Experience Essex in there?
Yeah. And she thought you put Experience Essex in there, and then it speaks to where you are. Everybody knows where the Essex Experience it is. It's a simple logo it's only two colors, so it's not super busy and it's distinctive.
It gets rid of the.
One of the original versions I had of that one used the sun, the yellow dot up at the top, as the O in Vermont, which was kind of interesting. And then I thought of carrying that, so like the O was actually that yellow circle, and then you could carry that yellow circle kind of into other elements of different things. You could have t-shirts that have that yellow circle or whatever it happens to be, but yeah, it's very simple. And that is all my own artwork. And I know it looks very block, like, okay, you can probably get like the barns, the Gambrel barn is probably the least of my pieces of artwork. That's probably most of the clip art that you see in this is comes from that. Everything else is something I took pieces and built. So I would say the mountain and the water, though, that one with the sun, that is the most original of that is completely mine. There's not much for clip art there.
There's at least one hand up in the public. Want to go to public comment?
Sure.
So, Betsy. Oh, yeah.
Well, you know me, Ken Signorillo. So, a logo is supposed to represent a brand. I'm going to ask the same question I've asked before. What is Essex brand? And then if we have that, we can look at the logo and say, does this logo represent that brand? When a person not familiar with the town looks at the logo, do they get the sense of that brand? That's the key of success with a logo. Logo doesn't come first, the brand comes first. So, what's a good effective logo? Have you seen Colchester's logo? Anybody familiar with it? Pretty simple, two colors, little people doing recreational things on the logo. Biking, something, sailing, I think. Obviously water. I know right away, Colchester is all about recreation. Very clear message. I understand their brand. Essex has a challenge. We have a lot of different things. Just look at that list of what people think of when they think of Essex. So what should our brand be? I say you go with the flow. Essex has a lot of different things, so the brand could be something like Essex has it all. And a logo could reflect that. We actually have an example of a logo that is trying to thread that needle. The Parks and Recreation logo has a quadrant kind of a setup. I'm not suggesting that that be our logo, but I'm just simply saying there are graphic ways to solve the problem. You give the graphic designer the brand, possibly a few elements, fewer the better. Because remember, the logo has to talk to people that aren't familiar with the town. That's a very crucial element. Once the graphic designer has that, they put their skills to use. Tammy has done a lot of work, and I totally appreciate Tammy and I have had this conversation already. I've built plenty of systems where I was not given all the information I needed. And I had to throw it out and start over again. It's hard. You feel ownership in these things. There's no question about it, Tammy. I do appreciate that. And but sometimes you realize, yeah, I wasn't given all the facts, and I need to go back and punt. So that's my feeling about the situation. I think that it actually is an improvement, no question about it. But from a landmass area, what is Essex mostly? Forest. That is what Essex is, mostly forest. But it is a lot of other things as well. Agriculture is there, but it's actually a relatively small portion of what Essex is. We have a budding industrial area. I kind of think that we're pushing for that. I think possibly that should be reflected in the brand and then the logo, possibly. Not definitely, but possibly. I think these are the kind of things you need to think about. I also think that the Economic Development Commission, which I applied for, should be somehow involved in this. I mean, it's kind of like economic development, right? It just makes sense to me. So I would encourage you to think about the brand first, involving as many people as possible. You have a commission, not even a committee. It's an actual commission of the town that's dedicated to this activity. They should be incorporated into this to come up with that brand. Once you have the brand, then work on the logo. I think there's a lot of information in the survey that can be used. That list of things that people identify the town with is useful. But again, you have to also be careful in that you want the logo to talk about the brand to people that don't live here. That's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Betsy?
Hi, Betsy Dunn. So I do like some of the logos here. I did vote. But when we had the other graphic up that had Essex, the words Essex, and you saw in the background the mountain.
The current logo?
Mm-hmm. That one, I like the mountain itself better than this mountain. This is not a view we have of our green mountains. Our green mountains that we see when you're going down 15 is the chin and the forehead and everything. That's on that other logo. You know what I mean? Tammy, do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I know what you're saying. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me.
No, it's okay. Well, I was only to you because you're the person who drew these things, and I
and I actually, I have
that
a couple of versions that have that.
Yeah. So that's the view I'd rather see if I was going to see that. And I don't mind having, and you could do, I don't know if you could do that because I thought about it just as we were all talking, as you all were talking about the two formed of triangles with the top of the top triangle being the sun or the moon. But I saw that they were more triangles, but I wanted to see if that would fit as well. But I don't think that would fit well there. But I do think it would fit in the two that you have as the two choices you were thinking of for us to think about is that background mountain. That's all. Thank you.
That's it.
And yes, I keep it simple too much.
Yeah. Any other public comments? See any hands online? Guess I haven't made too many comments myself. I kind of agree with, or not, I do agree with Kendall on the, I like the two triangle one because it's simple. It leaves out all that detail, so you don't have to be specific. I also see the potential of thinking of brand first rather than jumping into a logo. I, 'cause, 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 ' And I know there was some incentive to, because we're also doing website work now, to have something available for that. But it doesn't seem like we have consensus where we want to go with this.
We update the website's a live update, right? You put stuff on it, you put information on it all the time. You can't change the logo.
Well, we're getting ready to redo the whole website, so revamp the whole thing.
Right.
And Tammy can please jump in, but part of the reason of doing the logo first was we could have a color scheme. We could have some of those, well, basically the color scheme, I think, but Tammy's more the expert on that, and she's heading up the website more than me too. So I don't know if she has more to add on that front.
I can just briefly say we've already started that website. We just started that website redesign work. We didn't want to tackle that until IT was kind of had more of their time to them to be able to help with that. But yeah, one of the key elements will be just, we get a free redesign every 4 years. So we want to take advantage of that. And that means we can change colors and the way that the website looks in addition to regular updates. So at this point, we're starting the work that we can do without knowing what that color is going to be and which are the other elements on the website. So, but at some point we will need to know what we're going to do.
I just have one more question, and then we can decide. But if we spend over $1,000 on logos of town money, why weren't we presented with any of them?
Tammy and I talked about that, and the logo review committee did as well. They were too busy, and we kind of started with some of the stuff Tammy talked about. Team wanted to capture the sense of what Essex is. They wanted to do it in a simple way that it could be blown up, shrunk down, not have too many elements going on. And there was a lot of back and forth with the designer that we were using, and it kept being too busy. There was too much in there. So that's why we decided to scrap that and go ahead internally.
So how many hours of graphic design did we get roughly for over $1,000?
Tammy, do you know the answer to that?
I would have to look at the invoice. I don't know how many hours that was. We ended up with, I think, 3 designs. 3? I think 3. And then we went back again and we got some revisions, but a lot of it, just what Greg said, they would have been difficult to work with. I will say I've got a lot of other versions that I've put forth. Greg has probably seen so many logos his eyes are crossing at this point, but I do have versions that have the mountains that look a little more like Mount Mansfield and the views that Betsy was talking about. I do have versions of that. I've got a couple of hand-drawn versions that I did, some with the Saxon knives. There's several different kinds, but for one reason or another, we dropped them because either they just didn't hold all of the elements we thought, there was something in them that was missing. But I mean, I can always revisit those. I can go back, I can look at them, or like I say, we can just come up with different versions and try to do another shot at it. I'm happy to do that. If that's what you folks want me to do. Otherwise, we certainly can go and I know what type of company I believe that Ethan's talking about. You can submit and have different. Is that like Brand Crowd, possibly, Ethan, that you're talking about? Brand Crowd, or there's another one.
Or what do you mean for logo design?
For the company that makes them.
I know there's some in Essex. I personally use somebody from Fairfax, and they renditioned my logo about 30 times for me over the course of a couple days. They charged me for 3 hours, and it was $111. So I'm just curious as to that. Personally, sitting on the select board and being a taxpayer of Essex, I'm a little concerned that we spent over $1,000 on a logo that none of us even got to see. So.
Yeah. And I'll defend that, and if you're curious to see it, we can certainly do that. I assigned a team to come up with the logo. they spent a lot of time on that. They've had a lot of back and forth with the designer, and it wasn't meeting the criteria and the standard they had set. Rather than continuing to spend money,
Well,
we
yeah,
made
I
the
get
decision
that, yeah.
to stop and go a different.
I get
different
that.
route.
Yeah. I totally agree with the stopping of the designer of that, but I don't know. I've never done logos before this year, and it was a different process. But I'm just curious to know, I guess I'll turn it back to Andy so he can ask the questions, but I'm not comfortable with making any decisions on anything.
So what's the board want to do? We could either, it doesn't sound like we want to go out with any of these the designs we have here to go for another vote. Like people want to see more detail, or do we want to just?
I'd like to see more of the comments incorporated. I mean, I'd like to see if that background is supposed to be the Essex experience. I want to know that. And if they want to focus on Saxon Hill, I'd like to see a bike rider or something, or a canoe on the water. I mean,
So
something that says.
The concern there though is when you put it down on a small business card, that's gonna.
And I get it. It's
put
going to be
on-
too busy. I get that part. But maybe take out some of the field part. So that's. I mean, all that field stuff is. We don't have that many open fields in Essex, truthfully. It's trees.
There's over 1,000 acres of currently used agricultural land in Essex. There may not be cows on every bit of it, but there's over 1,000 acres of land that gets harvested every single year.
But okay,
and you
so
can drive on Chapin Road, you can drive on Old Stage Road, on Towers Road, on Center Road, and you'll see a barn on every one of those roads.
But what I'm saying is, how many people? How would that bring people to Essex? We're trying to sell what Essex is. So come to Essex and see this. How many tourists are going to come look at
Chapin Road,
the fields?
Chapin Orchards.
You know, that's not a field. That's an orchard. Anyway,
It's
do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is that this is supposed, like Ken said, supposed to sell Essex, and that's basically what people were asking for, more of the stuff you would see to bring people to Essex, and I don't see that.
So can I'm sorry. I was gonna raise my hand. I don't know where this thing is.
Go ahead.
I do have I have a lot of other versions, and when I hear you all talk, I think, gosh, I probably could match that with this. I do have some with kayaks in them. I have some versions with. I've spent a lot of time on this. I spent a lot of time on this, and you're only seeing it as like a portion of it. So I'm wondering if I should provide you with the full landscape. You can see just a plethora of all the ones that I've worked on. It might spark a different direction, possibly. And then with that, we can also provide the ones that the graphic designer had given to us and just give you a broader path. I guess I was trying to bring you something that we kind of narrowed down, and I think maybe we just need to go back to the beginning and show you where we started. And then if you're not finding anything in all of the different versions that I've worked through, I think at that point, certainly another option would be, and I'm not at that point, but even an option now would be to just like not bother doing that and just move on. We could also just go and just try to find put a proposal out there, try to find somebody that would work on this for us at a cost. So I guess that's the direction I'm offering, is that's one option, is I could just kind of go back and just show you the other pieces that we've got. I even have a version of the original that I just kind of blew up the town part of it a little bit, added a little different color, thickened the mountains a little. So there's so many different versions that I could put before you that maybe you would say, I like this. Can you take this element, bring it over here? And I'm happy to do that. It just seems like it might make more sense to do it on a smaller scale, maybe perhaps with a member or two of the board to work with me, so that we don't have to do this, several meetings more.
I'm sorry we're creating so much extra work for you.
No, I don't think you should apologize at all, because I think you really do want to try to get this right. And I want to get this right. So, but I think that maybe the committee that I'm working with, this is what they said. And so maybe we just need a different committee. Maybe this is just an idea of like, maybe we have to have different perspectives from some different people, and go from there. And if I can't provide you with what you're looking for, I guess what I was showing you is basically what's in my toolbox. It's not all that's in my toolbox. It just happens to be what we thinned out and what we came up with as options that satisfied everybody and seemed to be the middle. But there's more. I mean, we can do more.
Okay, so do we want to bring the whole shooting match into this meeting, or do we want to have a couple of us go work with Tammy to?
I'd rather have a couple of people work with Tammy, I think, and I think we all, I mean, basically, we sort of all got the same concept of what we want. We just haven't seen it all together yet. But I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to touch back on a point because I think me and Don's conversation there a minute ago just touched on a huge point because there's no brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
People want to see these things. They want to see the experience in that. And to me, and I won't go off on a tangent on this, but if people want Essex to be a 4-story condo with a movie theater behind it, then put that in a logo. But if they want it to be Essex that has Saxon Hill and Indian Brook and all of that, then put that in a logo. But I think Ken made a perfect point. We don't have a direction. We're trying to put all of that into one logo, and it's not. You know what I mean? That can't be a logo. You can't have a movie theater next to a farm. It's just not there. It doesn't exist. They turned it into an ice cream shop. You know what I mean? Serious. I'm being serious though. Like as you develop out, there's different sections of town. If it is the town center, then and that's what we're focused on is the business corridor, and that's the brand of Essex is just the business corridor. Then it's the business corridor. If it wants to be all of it, and you throw in those couple small shops with the barn and the water tower, and then the mountains, then it's that. I think there's a good point there.
So yeah, we're repeating a lot of stuff we've said already. So
right, but we don't have we still haven't. The board hasn't made a consensus of a brand of what we want them to draw.
Right.
So
right. So what I'm hearing. So I've heard we said, Kendall, you got any thoughts on what we should go here?
It's very hard. The branding's important. I just think you probably could do the branding with a logo, a word logo, and tied to whatever emblem you have, because Essex is so diverse. There's not one thing that everybody said Essex.
What about instead of the Essex experience? Why don't you put experience Essex?
That's what Kendall had said.
That what you said? I didn't. Okay, I missed that part. Turning it around.
Yeah, use the abstract. His suggestion was use the abstract.
Okay, because I thought he said the Essex
and
experience, and I want that to, okay.
Experience Essex, and then, but again, right, is there any other detail that could be put in that anybody wants to see or whatever, yeah. Tracy, I don't know.
Yeah, I keep going back to the Parks and Rec logo and like the geometric shapes.
Really like
and then it's scalable, right? You can insert different things to make up the whole of everything that Essex is.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have, there's a tree with a trail. There's a frog. You could have water. You could have, like a little shopping center.
Or a little red barn somewhere.
I don't care about the barn. People forget.
The overall point is to, I think it makes sense to have something scalable like that you can plop in. That's a technical term. Plop in. The various components of what Essex is, depending on whether you're working with Parks and Rec, or whether you're working with town offices, or whether you're working with economic development. But that base logo would, for all intents and purposes, remain the same. And then you're not trying to cram everything into one logo.
I actually have two that I used the same shapes that we have in the Essex Parks and Rec, because that was one of the things we talked about in our committee, is exactly what you're saying. And I have 2 versions of that. You just have not seen them, but yeah, we did the same thing. And the other thing we did play around with was the idea of changing the icons depending on what department you were looking at. So like you could use those same shapes and then use different icons for, say, the planning department and what they would be doing and whatever else. So like, yeah, you could totally have a lot of fun with all of the icons and switch it up, but just use those same 4 pieces and, like you said, plop them in there. But that's yeah, I have 2 versions of that already. Yep.
So, you get the sense that we're not ready to go forward with any of these options. We'd like to see what has been done before. We'd like to try to integrate in some sort of branding, possibly have a flexible thing. So, Tammy offered to go through all that. I think there was some sense that we should do it with a smaller group rather than the whole group. How do we decide who's going to do that? Does anybody?
I'm more than willing to sit down and help.
Anybody else willing to do that?
I didn't want to be the one to offer it up first. I don't want you to think I'm going to drive a barn into the logo, but I'd be more than happy to sit down and go over the logo.
So the intent here is right, is to go see what's been done.
See the rest of what she's got and to go for
goes in there and you can come back and educate the rest of us as to what more information about it and their ideas. You okay with that? Do we need to appoint these folks to do this, or just say they've volunteered to do it and you can?
We'll just have Tammy tell us what works for you.
Tammy can
with
get
your
together
schedule.
and organize some discussion offline. So you can't have more than 2 of us because then
right
it becomes quorum. So.
Get the young and the older is perfect.
You're still young.
Oh my goodness,
Well, you are older than me.
I am old. I know. I
I
know.
didn't say old. I said older.
Oh my God. I take everybody's questions and now I'm old. I can't win tonight.
All right.
It's all
so
relative.
That's true.
I think we can move. Well, we should move on now.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yes.
Thank
No problem.
A lot of work, and thank you for being willing to continue working.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, moving on to discussion and potential action on town. No, I just read that. That's discussion and potential action on adoption of the Town of Essex Declaration of Inclusion. Is this?
Me. Yes. Hello. Good evening. Well, hard to follow that discussion, but maybe we can. Who knows? So this Declaration of Inclusion, just to reiterate, you have a draft here that has gone through. Essentially, I took some templates that some of the other towns in Vermont had already adopted. This is through the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion project that's run by Al Wakefield and Norm and Bob Harnish, I want to say is his last name. Anyway, and took those templates, kind of looked at them, but I've talked a lot about it. Essex Best looked at them. They came and presented to our CEE when we first had that committee. So it was a while ago now. This has been a bit in the making, but part of that was because separation came in and we wanted to make sure Essex Best knew what it was going to do and decide on that first. So in the meantime, I sent this draft around to the department heads. I got feedback there. I then brought it to the Essex Best meeting and got their feedback as well. And so now it's in front of you with that input. I will note that I also, in creating this when I first around February, March, I met with Catherine and incorporated some of the town plan language into the original template draft that I sent out to department heads to make sure that we were using language and ideas that we had heard from the public already in those sessions, just to make sure we're getting as much public language as possible that we already have access to. This was something that was brought up again last spring and winter even actually, and has been a project that has been shelved until kind of we got some other aspects of separation done. And so now that we're here, This is the draft that is on the table for your discussion. I will note that you could approve for adoption tonight, or you could adopt it straight up. It's not a policy or procedure. It's really up to you how you want to proceed. You could do neither of those things either, but there is an option there as well. If you wanted to approve for adoption, it would then go on the reading file for the next meeting, and that might allow for some more public to see it or look at it. It really is just up to you as to what you're thinking and what you want to do.
Okay, thank you, Marguerite. Any comments or questions from board members?
I'm ready to make a
Kendall.
motion, but I don't have any comments or questions.
Well,
I have
we
one
agree to go
comment.
public
I
comment.
know.
We could-
I know.
The one comment I have is that I read through the entire thing and the word discrimination is not included anywhere. So I would like to include the word discrimination somewhere in the sentence that says, to that end, the town of Essex Select Board condemns. You've been very specific, but as we all know, we can't tell what is going to be discriminated against at any time. So I would just like to add discrimination so that it's clear that we include all discrimination. That's my suggestion.
Any other board comments? So is there a specific place that you would like to put that?
The second paragraph where it says to the end, the town of Essex Select Board condemns. He wants to have discrimination put in there too.
I think it'd go perfect after ageism.
Sure.
Because then it force switches into
Yep.
all the isms.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Isms and discrimination, and it goes on. So yeah,
Yep.
right there.
Yep. Okay. Good. All right. There's no more any other board comment. Let's go to public comment. I thought I saw a hand up in the room here. Ken, come on up.
So I've been looking at this issue a little bit, and I've been reading that a lot of these declarations now are starting to include the word belonging, because it's not enough to just be included. People need to not only be included, but they need to feel as though they belong. So if you could work that into it, maybe in that one little section where it says feel included, maybe be included and feel that as though they belong, or something along those lines might be a nice thing. There's something that I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more in these going forward. People are starting to come to that realization that just being included is not quite enough. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. Any other public comments?
Anything online?
I don't see any hands up online or in the room. So let's, I guess, bring it back to the board. So there was a comment about adding belonging.
So if you put in that first line, the town of Essex Select Board, I think that's supposed to be hereby, declares our commitment to fostering an inclusive, instead of welcoming, could you put belonging in there? Yes?
Yes. I didn't want to speak for you all. I easily can, if you all feel that that is what you want.
That work?
How did we all miss Herbie?
It's it's supposed to be hereby.
Because I didn't see that.
You didn't
So
see
you pointed
Herbie?
it
Oh, I'm
out.
sorry. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, say Herbie, doesn't it?
It would then say, the town of Essex Select Board hereby declares our commitment to fostering an inclusive and belonging place for all residents, visitors, employees, and more. No.
Well, it could say fostering an inclusive and belonging atmosphere.
Oh. Atmosphere doesn't flow. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Inclusive and welcoming place where all residents, visitors, employees, and others feel they can belong, or feel they belong.
That works. Christy got her hand up though. She may have something.
Great.
I was looking at that last sentence. We understand that our community is best served when all residents feel included, have a sense of belonging, and equitable access to town services and facilities.
Have a sense of belonging right there. Yep.
That works too. Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tracy.
Does that work, Marguerite?
Yes.
Either adopt it, which means we're done and it's adopted,
Then- okay.
or we could approve it for adoption.
Then I make the motion to
Which
select board.
means that we,
Yep.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
which means that we would approve it at a future meeting. It's our policy to not approve major policies in the same meeting that they're introduced. It's questioned whether or not this is a policy. It's a statement, and it could be considered a resolution. So I think we can approve it this meeting, or we can adopt it.
Well,
in
it's
this
been
meeting.
it's been passed around to so many committees, Andy. I think it's
Yeah, I'm just explaining.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah, so
Well,
you can make the motion.
then
We can discuss whether
I make the motion to select board adopt the Declaration of Inclusion with the changes.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Okay, do we want to have any discussion? Anybody uncomfortable with adopting this tonight? Would you like to extend it to the next meeting so that we can have an opportunity for more public comment? People can certainly comment on it after we adopt it. We don't have to, people don't have to, we can always hear more comments later if need be, if people have them. Any thoughts? Okay, I see thumbs up, I see nods, heads nodding. So the motion is to adopt with the two changes that were suggested this evening. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Marguerite, and thank you to everybody who put any finger on this at all. That's a lot of work. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay. Okay, moving on to the next business discussion is item J, discussion and potential action about residency requirements for volunteer boards, commission, and committees. This has come up a number of times. We've mentioned it earlier this evening during some of the interviews. We have not in the past had any requirement for residency. Statute allows us to have non-residents. I think the only actual statute says that our planning commission has to have a majority of residents.
It's the only statute I'm aware of. Here's a
Oh,
statute.
right. You should say
Gives
only
authority
one per
to
board.
city council, select boards to create boards as they see fit. Because planning commission is one that is detailed out by statute. I think that's why that is in there. There are certain charters that say, may say residents, you have to be a resident to be a member of the planning commission or different boards, but we don't have that at this time.
So
we've,
yeah.
sorry.
No,
I was gonna say, so we've sort of used that planning commission statute as a model for other boards and committees. I mentioned here, I'm not sure if I mentioned specifically, but there was one, the Conservation and Trails Committee. The Planning Commission have had members in the past recent years where somebody was a member, they moved out of town, they remained on until the end of their term. I think apart from that, the Housing Commission is the only one that specifies in Essex that you don't have to be a resident as long as the majority is made up of residents.
Well, I think that's one of their changes, though, that they just made. They take that out and that change. I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's not changed.
No, I mean they pulled it. So, but I thought I read that was one of the.
And so we currently have a number of committees, commissions, and appointees that are non-residents. And so there's questions that come up, do we remove, if we decide that we don't want to have, that we want to have only residents only, do we remove? Well, I guess we have to answer the question whether we want to exclude non-residents. Then we have to deal with the question of, do we want to remove anybody who's currently not a resident that represents the town? It's not just committees and commissions. It's also, for example, it's Green Mountain. Is it Green Mountain Transit? No, it's Green Mountain Transit. We our appointee is currently not a resident of the town. We just reappointed him.
No, we haven't yet.
We haven't yet. That's one of
He's
the
on the
discussions we
list.
have to do tonight. Okay. So, what are folks feeling about residency requirements or?
I'll start. I think it is a huge disservice to this town to kick off anybody who's served for this town or wants to serve for this town and isn't a resident. I feel that if someone has the best interest for Essex and they have the interest in serving Essex and you know, whether they're a new appointment or they're a reappointment, you know, especially the reappointments, and they've proven, you know, their dedication to this town. I feel that we're doing a huge a disservice to the residents by removing those people from the boards and committees. Originally, when we first started talking about it, I was kind of like, you know, maybe they should all have to be town residents. And the more that I thought about it, and the more that I learned from all these volunteers and the work that they've done, and really one of the last things on my mind is what town you know, do you live in? And with one of our interviews tonight, I just wanted to make sure that they knew, you know, this is just Essex now. You know, would you still like to serve for us? Because if you want to serve for Essex, I see no harm in that. Those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Ethan. Kendall?
I guess I'm going to speak against that, in that most of the boards and committees and stuff that you see, they're very careful to have a balance to represent different communities. And the truth is that the town of Essex and the city of Essex Junction are now two different communities, just like the town of Jericho or Williston or anything. And I really think that the residents of the town should be on the committees, not non-residents. I would have a really hard time in probably most places being appointed on any committees in another town unless I was a particular expert, and then I wouldn't necessarily be put on as a member, but I'd be put on as an expert, a professional, you know, in that capacity. So I can appreciate the service of those people from outside the community serving the community in that capacity. But if you're a resident of the town, you should service your town. It takes away a lot of the question if there's ever any kind of conflicts or issues if you have all residents, because you're all in it together. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Kendall. Anybody else? Any comment?
Go ahead.
I am having a difficult time with this. We just passed a declaration of inclusion. And now we're talking about excluding people who want to serve for the betterment of our community. If we make a blanket statement that you must be a resident, it closes that door. So if there is expertise, I'm not talking about city town, I'm talking about other neighboring communities, maybe someone who has a business here, who lives in a neighboring community, if they want to participate in EDC. I'm just pulling it out of the air. That would prevent them going forward from participating. I've said it before. I don't care where good ideas come from. Bring me the good ideas. And that's where I'm landing on this. I do think that we should clearly state that residency is preferred. But we as a board, as the memo says, we as the board can make that decision when we appoint based on who the applicants are, what their experiences are, and the current makeup of the committee. That's where I sit.
Thanks, Tracy. Don.
Coming into tonight, I was really going to open this big can of worms and say absolutely you had to live in the town. But having listened to multiple, people speak, and having listened to what Tracy just said, and And the fact that I did not realize that Tatanisha lived in the city and not the town, which really changed my view of some things. I think it would be, and I don't know how to put this correctly, I would prefer it be all town people, but I also wouldn't make it a stipulation. I mean, but I would give town residents first choice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just I see. I don't know how to word this. I'm saying that I'd rather have people live in the town and work for the town, you know, because they're really invested in the town. But I also understand where Tracy's coming from, and what Ethan said. If they wouldn't have applied if they weren't really interested, even though they lived in the city. So I don't know how to word it. I just, you know. But my coming in tonight, my biggest feeling was, well, the village voted to separate from the town. They don't want anything to do with us. So why are they applying to the committees? That was my initial response to this whole thing. But in listening and during the interview, I don't know, I've got a little bit of change of heart. But
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Share my
Yeah.
thoughts too. For more comments. I think there's a difference between existing committee and commission members versus new appointments. I think, as Tracy said, we can make those new appointment decisions on a case-by-case basis. I agree that town residents should be preferred, but if you've got a qualified candidate, I don't think we have any situations where anybody that we're considering now is a new appointment that is not a town resident. I think
You have some terms that have ended that are
Right, so
non-residents, but they would be
reappointments.
reappointments. So, yeah.
Right, so those are existing members that
have been serving.
So I think there's a difference there. And it may be a different question if there was somebody who was applying I don't know. We'll have to have this. I think it's a case by case discussion at that point. Do they have the expertise? Do we need that skill? You know, is there some other extenuating circumstance that? So I'm in favor of allowing non-residents. In one case, we had a resident who moved to South Burlington. So it's not just Essex Junction that non-residents could live in and still serve.
I have a problem with that one.
And it was like the last 6 months of the Winooski Valley Park District thing, mayor appointee kind of that situation. But so Ethan, you had your hand up for more.
Yeah, I just had a couple thoughts popping in my head from Don. And one of the biggest points that I wanted to just say was not everybody voted to leave the town. There's still a lot of people like
I know
Ashtiana that loves the
the
town. So, but the main reason why I came to this and I was just had another thought when I was hearing what you had to say, Andy. Is I don't know if I added this up right. I don't have a directory of who lives where, just from my personal experiences, but I counted 7 seats right now that wouldn't be filled because there wasn't enough people that applied for the positions to fill them, and more so would be on the housing commission, on our GMT rep, GMT rep, which is Alan. I don't even know where Alan lives, honestly, but I don't know if he lives in the Junction or if he lives outside of Essex in general. But then there's somebody there's planning, there's trying to think of
zoning.
Yeah, zoning. So I just had it, where the whole case by case, and if it was a new appointment or reappointment, if we're gonna do it, I say we just allow it, and then it be in the interview process. We'd interview everybody, and then when you're making a decision, we're looking for qualifications, not residency, right? Really? I mean, personally, I'm just asking a question, but personally, I prefer somebody that I understand, when there's people who apply for things and we may not have, openings and they may not have the experience and they're willing to learn. Also, when we have people who have experience come to us and give us information and share that they're qualified to volunteer for this position, I don't think whether I lived in Westford, Essex, or Essex Junction, personally, I wouldn't see that as a disqualification. It'd be like saying we were only going to hire plow truck drivers from the town because we didn't want them to hit Greg's mailbox when they plowed the road. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because it does sound silly when you use it in a different scenario. But I totally understand the whole. And I was on them, and like Don said, when the separation happened, I was dead set. And then I met everybody, and I learned about what they've done for us. And I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't care. And I feel like everybody else that steps up to volunteer is only here because they actually care about this community. So I think that has its weight. But I just wanted to add in those last couple of comments.
So Greg, when we advertise positions, do we put residency preferred in there?
I don't think we do, but I'm not positive. It's certainly something we can add in.
Because
I was
it's
gonna look
something
at
that I
Tammy,
think
but
we
she's
should,
already
we
stepped.
should let folks know.
Right,
That that's the
right.
criteria we could
Right,
use.
right.
When we have our discussions about whether or not to fix it.
Yeah, the only thing that says is ask if you are a resident of the town of Essex, and I was
Right.
confused why the cab didn't ask that question because I couldn't tell. I personally I wasn't going to ask them, where they live, but on the cab applications there was no residency question.
Okay, I'd have to check on that. I know that we know
I'm
got
sure
some
you
that were
guys scanned them.
non-residents.
Yeah,
We
yeah, yeah.
pointed them towards.
But I was just like,
locations
that's
like
funny. So I didn't know.
All right, so I see some hands in the public. Comment. No. Betsy, come on up.
Good evening, and it's Betsy Dunn. I do not believe that we should have non-residents on the committees in the commissions that we have. I think they should be Essex Town residents. And I think a person who's got expertise and is concerned and is involved and wants to be involved can always come to meetings and contribute in that manner, but they don't have to be the people making the votes about what happens. For economic development, person could poach. We're looking at a person to come into the town, into the business, and this person's from another town and goes back to their group. They're looking at that place over there. You better look and see if they might want to come on our way. I don't want that. I want us to start thinking about what we want. And as a town, we're just in this fledgling newness. And how are we going to participate and go further forward, I think is really important. And we do have people who aren't the committees that don't have full membership. And we had a person drop off of the committee because of the atmosphere on that committee. I think we need to have a good ethics issue here, a conversation, because why aren't people signing up for it? Because people are interested in their community. And what's keeping them from being a participant? I think that's the really big question there. When you say you've got all these committees and commissions that don't have people who are signing up, I think that that's a big thing. And I think that maybe it's about term limits. Maybe it's about, not being able to be a chair of that committee for the next 15 years and push the way you want to go. I think it's really important to look at those things. And I think that people of Essex can rule their own domain. Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. I see a hand online, Lorraine Zaloon.
Thank you, Andy. No, I could argue both ways. I think there's so many different variables involved. I think it could depend on the committee and the commission in terms of what benefits someone from another town being on it might bring. Like, for example, even on the Conservation and Trails Committee, if someone from another town served on it, it could potentially even bring more traffic from an outside town because we're such a small state. that creates marketing and community. I could argue that people who have a business here and pay business taxes, that they also might benefit some of our committees too, by even serving on like the econ development committee because they have a stake. I wouldn't necessarily want someone from a planning commission to serve on this from another town. So I'm almost thinking like this is a kind of question, since it looks like it's a chartered proposition, that maybe we could just look into the history in terms of our size of town, Vermont, and what serves a community like ours best. I just think we probably need to think about it a little bit more if it's going to be a chartered thing. And totally, like Betsy said, one of our issues is our lack of ethics in the policies and our outreach. We really aren't that great in terms of figuring out how to outreach better to get people on our committees. So I know we need a lot of work. I know there are times that we go through population changes that you have more people available and times that you don't. And it's interesting tonight or over this path to see so many new faces, which is fantastic because I personally would like to give deference to people who live in the town. But I think there might be times that when population is down or whatever, that you may want to expand that field. So anyway, I might want to Google it and see what's best. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. Hey, any other public comments? I don't see any hands, so consensus I heard is that we not limit, or anybody want to react to any of the public comments who don't have any questions? Go ahead, Ethan.
I hear both of the comments. I'm just curious if we went that way, who would fill in? And I don't have the list off the top of my head, but I know that all the positions haven't been applied for to fill all the positions. So who would fill those positions? Are we just going to run with a board? I mean, like the housing commission, that board's been in crisis for a quorum for a while through the city and the whole separation. And now that the separation's happening, there's 2 members, and one of them is currently a city resident who wants to possibly come to the town, and there may be just 1 member coming up, and we make an appointment, possibly, depending on how we decide this, and there may be 2 members. There may not be a quorum for the housing commission.
Well, we do more outreach then at that point.
I understand, but from now until that point, there's no business happening, and that's not just one board. That's multiple boards. That there's. I'm not saying for the quorum, but I'm just saying for a full board. I wish I would have written it down because I knew it was going to come up tonight. I just didn't have the time to get a hold of Greg over the weekend. I was camping, but I would really look into how many vacant seats there's going to be by eliminating that, because there's quite a few.
So the consensus is that we not limit.
Right.
So,
I'm just responding to.
Right. Yep. Anybody else want to comment?
It's my absolute preference that committee and commission members be residents. I just don't think that there is always one right answer, and that we should have some gray, not just black and white, to be able to do the right thing in the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if it's preferable for Essex residents, and we get more applications because we're gonna have vacancies that we're still gonna be advertising for this year. If we get a swarm of Essex residents, then next year when it comes about and we have another swarm of Essex residents, we can fill all of the boards with Essex residents, so be it. Let's do it. I just think it's a disservice to the town right now to not have as many people on those committees and commissions as we can currently.
Okay, so in order for us to continue as we currently are, we don't need to take any action.
Correct.
So,
Certainly happy to work with Tammy and get something on our applications form that residency is preferred, but beyond that, yeah, no actions needed.
yeah. You okay with adding residency preferred to applications? I don't know, do you want to say more?
So I would just ask the question that unlike most towns, if we are not requiring residency for our boards, does that mean we have to advertise outside of the town? Just a question.
I don't think so. If there's any obligation there at all.
No?
I think for some of our boards, it's unlikely that people from another municipality would apply.
If it was a paid position, Kendall, a full-time paid position, they would have to advertise outside the town because it's not a full-time or a paid position, it's a volunteer position.
Well, I just
You know what I mean?
wondered because our volunteer position is a paid position.
We do offer a stipend.
We compensate our members where a lot of communities don't. So, I mean, I'm just asking it sets there's a gray area that hasn't been discussed before. And sometimes that's probably why a lot of places specify residency, is because then that answers all those questions. So I'm just curious about that.
All right, should we move on? We good moving on. All right. Next one is discussion and potential action on plan to improve communication between volunteer boards, commissions, and committees. Greg.
Sure, so this is something that we started discussing at the last meeting and wanted to come back and propose some hopefully tangible steps to improve those communication based on a conversation, based on giving it some thought after the last meeting. The memo lays out some options. Coming up this week, we're going to be doing a breakfast with the chairs and the vice chairs of all the boards and committees. Way to start communicating that way, give and take feedback from the boards, have the different members going to just brainstorm and chat and hear what the others are doing. We talked about minutes, whether or not to include those in the packets. Certainly the simplest, quickest way is to just visit the website. It's going to be the most up-to-date piece or information available. We could put a link into the packets each week. If we were to include the minutes in the packets, it probably doesn't take that much time for staff to do uploads, but it is just one more thing for people to think about and remember. It does make the packets bigger. It's something we can do. It's not the end of the world, but it may not be the simplest option. Talked about inviting board members of the boards and committees to come to select board meetings. Talked to staff a little bit. We were thinking if we do that, probably I think somebody mentioned it at the last meeting, to August, September, October timeframe might make sense. Chance to talk about what work plans are for the coming year and what budget needs might be requested for the year after that. We could keep that open-ended. It could, be invite the whole committee, invite the chair or the vice chair to come in and give updates. That'll take time, so I think it'll be helpful to have some questions like you do with the interviews about what you're looking for, prompt people ahead of time so they can come in a little bit more prepared. Another idea is to have each of you volunteer and serve as a liaison to the boards and committees. I don't think you would need to necessarily go to every single meeting by any means, but you could be a point of contact for those boards and committees and attend one or two a year. We can keep doing the town meeting showcase that we do at town meeting. There's always an opportunity to expand that and do a little bit more with that as well. But so those are some of the options. I'm sure there's more that are out there, but those are the ones that we've thought of in the past few weeks and wanted to present to you tonight.
Okay, so I wasn't at the last discussion you had about this. Haven't heard my thoughts, but
Well, why don't you share them then?
you want me to hear what you're saying? Okay. So this comes up every so often with the select board. This isn't the first time that the question has been raised about trying to get better communication. My experience in past go-rounds with this is that the consensus at the end of the discussion was that select board members that are interested in what committees are doing can go find their minutes on the website rather than adding them to the packet. So that's been what has happened in the past. The other thing that comes to light, I'm trying to address some of the comments that Greg made, is not all committee members or chairs are comfortable coming and speaking to the select board. It's something we can ask them to do, but it may disincent people from being chair. Just something to think about. That again, believe it or not, that discussion has been had before by the select board. Think of the other thoughts. Each committee does have a staff member assigned, and so there certainly is a path for committees to communicate to the select board. They can certainly ask their staff representative to go, ask for any help that's needed, or as any member can do, any member of any committee can do, is call any select board member also and share their thoughts. So I guess I'm disinclined to add more content to our meeting packet. Some of them get pretty long to begin with. All of the information is available already on the website. We can, each of us can go find whichever committees we're interested in finding, as can the public. It's more workload on staff to assemble the packet. If it doesn't happen, then you end up having to address why it doesn't happen, and it can be problematic there. Again, I think I have a number of times invited specific committee chairs to come to to at least share their needs for upcoming budget season, and it's inconsistent whether we get a response. So I think there's some I don't know, and I'm not saying, that's maybe a harsh thing to say in public, that some of our chairs don't ask for what they need when they need it. I shouldn't have said that.
Too late.
Too late. Yeah, it's been said. I don't know. I think the breakfast that we're gonna have Thursday morning is a good idea. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can have some fruitful discussion there. I really like the idea of having the community fair as part of informational meeting. Maybe there's a way to have that happen more than once a year. Try to get more volunteers that way also. Ethan, go ahead.
I just want before I forget, because I forget things, but I had said that about the packets, the minutes on the packet, because I don't need to dig any further for things that aren't, packet's already long enough. So if we add in the committees, so the commissions, so 5 others. But I really liked something off from that idea, and like you had mentioned in Greg's proposal here, is the select board lesions.
Oh.
I like that idea. I think if we split it up and said, I'll take these 2, you take those 2, and then I wouldn't say have a dead set requirement of, okay, you have to go to 1 meeting a month or whatever. But I could see myself, I've done it. I could see myself attending 2 to 3 meetings every 3 months or whatever. I've attended 2 different commissions this year, or committees, both, I should say. I like that idea, because that way I don't have to know what's going on every single one of them. Then we can all kind of come back and have it on an agenda one day of I guess that would be kind of hard because we'd all be going at different times, but I don't know. I like that idea. I just don't know how to execute it.
This another. You just reminded me of the other point that I neglected to make is that this has come up before and it's been discussed, and the response that we've gotten from some of the committees is they don't want the select board to exert undue influence on what they're doing. You know, that's the why we appointed a committee. If we want to appoint a committee, we should let them do their work. We should respect their work. If the select board wants to do the work, the select board should do the work, and not meddle. I don't know if that's the right word with what our committees do. We've gotten that response from some committees in the past.
What if we don't? What if we just go there to listen with a piece of paper?
You can absolutely. We're all absolutely free. To
I know
do
we
it
are. I know
as
we
many
are,
meetings
but
as we
I'm
want.
just thinking in this.
But to do it in an official capacity, it makes it something different.
Right.
I was going to suggest that Greg include the link in the packet each time, and if there was an easy way to maybe specify the committees that had meetings that particular 2-week period or whatever it was between, so you could narrow it down. And then in the reading file on the agenda, just leave a space that says comments on minutes or something, so that if any board members had any questions or comments on what they read in the minutes, they could bring that up in a meeting. Just a suggestion.
What was that last one, Kendall?
In the agenda that you have in the reading file, a place that comment on committee minutes, something like that, just so that each meeting, if any board members had any questions or were curious about something, they could discuss it during the meeting.
You might not have anybody that can respond to that question in the meeting. That's where I'm.
No, but if it was worthy of consideration or question at that point, Greg could follow up on it, or it could be discussed later, or like that. I'm mostly just curious to kind of keep up on what's going on versus questioning what they're doing.
In the past, it's come down that it's incumbent on each select board member to follow their own interests in that regard, and not to add content to the select board meeting.
Okay.
Around that, but that's I'm just saying that's what the past has been. Doesn't mean we can do that now.
Whole new beginning, Andy.
In how I've seen it done, I mean, I've brought this up previously, but how I've seen it done is just, it's for consistency and awareness of information, because many community members may tie into this meeting, but not others. They may not check agendas regularly, but more than likely, if they are interested, they will be interested in this meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So how this has happened in other communities is, I have an interest in planning. So if I were to attend a planning commission meeting or conservation and trails, at the next meeting, if there was some event, if there was something going on, if there was a survey, whatever, at that next meeting, I could speak up during board member comments and say, oh, hey, just for awareness, like there's this survey. Or at the next meeting, they're looking for community feedback, just to bring more awareness and amplification of what's going on in other areas. So that's where this comes from. It's not a like, oh, we're, Big Brother listening in on everything you do. It's just for that consistency of information and to make sure that the community is aware of what's going on in other areas. Because it's difficult to, keep tabs on what every committee is doing.
Right. And the community reaches out to us if they don't know. And if we haven't been informed, it's really hard to answer their questions.
You made me think of something, and then I'll want to comment on you, Don, too. Kendall, your thought about having an agenda item for board or committee member, or for board members to comment on the minutes, is that because Tracy mentioned the board member comments, you can comment on anything. I don't know if that's sufficient or if it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't have to be formal, as long as you knew under the reading minutes that if there were any comments that somebody said. An example would be, I listened in on the RPD pizza thing, and it was great. And they mentioned a number of times they wish a lot more people were involved in that. So say this was the reading file, I say, hey, they're having an RPD pizza day, and there's probably more coming up. Check it out. It's great. That type of a thing.
Mm-hmm. And then Donna, as for what you just said, none of us are going to know everything that's going on at any moment. So I think, and I do it all the time. I do it for you. I do it for staff and residents. If someone says, hey, what's going on with such and such, and I don't know, let me look into it and get back to you. That is a perfectly acceptable answer in my mind.
I see hands up in the public. Should we go to public comment?
Sure.
Betsy, come on up.
Good evening. Betsy Dunn. So I'm the clerk of the Conservation and Trails Committee, and I could certainly send you the minutes at any time. I have them done by the third. We meet on the second Tuesday, and I always have them out and to our staff member by that Thursday. So they're there 2 days after the meeting, and they could go up online immediately, but we have to have them approved. That's the issue. We don't put them online until approval. But we could do is that you have a public to be heard time, and you could ask these 4 committees to come and just give a public to be heard, and the committee could say, oh, I'll go ahead and I'll go that day, and then just let you know in a very brief synopsis what we're up to, and it's done. But it keeps you informed about what's happening in your town that you're governing, because we're making decisions about what we want to do within the town, and we're also creating a vision, just like the Planning Commission is envisioning. We're envisioning what we see of the trails and the parks, and with the conservation that we have to do, water management, the quality. So I think you'd be wanting to know about those things. And I'm sure that every committee that there is has got important issues of their own. I don't know what they all are, but I can tell you they have them. So I would think you would want to hear it. And a public to be heard, that could be like 2 short sentences. And just so you know what's about. And then you could say, well, what is that about? We didn't know. That's
Thanks, Betsy. Ken?
So I heard one suggestion and I just tested it out. You just go online and check for the most recent agendas and minutes. So I tried that for Conservation and Trails Committee. Went to the Conservation and Trails page, nice link, most recent agendas and minutes. Click on that. Doesn't go to the most recent agenda and minutes. Goes to all the future meetings for all the entities. You have to change the dates, the range you want to see, and then specify the committee that you want to see. Then you can see those meetings in the past and the link to the minutes. I don't think that's a good option. The idea of having a link to each of the minutes, that's a good idea. But I've experienced what the city is doing, because I have to read their packets, and they are including the minutes. The DRB minutes are in there, Planning Commission is in there, and it becomes like a newspaper. You know, when you get a newspaper, you don't read every article. You just read the articles you're interested in. The headline, Conservation and Trails, I'm interested in that, I read that. So minimum, a link, I think is a great idea. Actual minutes, if the committee sends them in, should it be a lot of extra work? I think that that's actually the optimal way to go. Oh, I should say, Conservation and Trails Committee passed a motion at its last meeting to send in the minutes. I don't know if they ever got sent in or not, but we did. Or the select board, I mean.
Thank you. Lorraine.
Thank you. For me, just our lives are really busy. I'm looking for like kind of a one-stop repository that I can kind of click on and get, or even in the minute, I don't care how it's done. I just want to make it easy on me because I'm selfish that way. But I'm thinking even like, I think Tammy Geschel does them, those civic alerts, and even to be able to sign up for a notification for when the minutes go out or something. So, and to me, part of this is about cross-pollination, making and better communication so that we're better informed. And a lot of the committees' work actually overlap in a lot of ways. I think we need to make sure that that overlap happens on a regular basis as well, because it's more efficient. So I don't know how best to do that, but I do want to do something that makes it easier. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Lorraine. I think we Wasn't sure if you got cut off. You stopped. It's like she stopped. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. I said thanks, Andy. I'm sorry. I thought you heard me.
All right. All right. All right. What do we want to do? Ethan.
I have a comment, I should say, but since we're doing a website redesign, maybe instead of agendas and minutes, it's agendas and then minutes. And that way, when you click on minutes, you only get minutes. When you click on agendas, you only get agendas. And then that way, they'll still pop up in newest form. You know what I mean, like right now, you click on agendas and minutes, and you get the upcoming meetings. You have to, like Ken said, you have to do some funky business to find the minutes, but I don't know if that's makes sense.
I don't know if it's because part of the way it's set up right now is just that's the
Civic
functionality of
clerk.
the website, and that's Civic Clerk, and that's how
Right.
they set it up. I can certainly talk to Tammy and IT and relay that message if it's something that
Yeah.
that they can do. If you'll indulge me for a moment, can I go to the website and try to work some of this stuff through? My screen. Go to the Town of Essex website. Your government, agendas and minutes. And it has all of right now we have the select board meeting. That's tonight. You scroll up, there was a Conservation and Trails Committee, there was an Economic Development Commission, Planning Commission, Housing Commission. If you scroll down, you can see the meetings that are coming up, Select Board, Housing Commission. You can filter it. So Ken said he went to Conservation and Trails Committee.
I went to the Conservation Trust first, though. Boards and you see, that's that problem. The way you did it works pretty well, actually. I did it. Conservation Trails, the top, you got boards and committees there first. I think I just wanted looking for trails minutes and everything.
That might be a functionality of the website. The link that we have in the packet is the one that I just went to, and that's where it just has all of them. From there, you can you can go to the event categories and click on the Conservation and Trails Committee.
But then you have to search the keyword minutes.
Nope. And I can check with Tammy and IT and see if that's something that going to each committee's page, the minutes, that'll automatically populate it. That's something I can check on. If you go to the cemetery, no, I'm back in 2021. I'll try February 8th meeting. You click on that, and there's the agenda. And there's the minutes.
Could you go to March 28th Conservation Trail?
Which year?
What's this year?
Oh, that's the
Yeah,
cemetery, George.
March 28th.
Oops.
Let's see.
See, I just clicked on it, and I clicked on the Conservation and Trails. It says, oh, not fun. That's working. Okay, didn't work the first time. Great. And minutes.
Yep.
Minutes.
And I admit our website is not perfect. It's not the most
I don't think it's our
efficient thing
website. I
out
think
there,
it's Civic
You
Clerk.
did a good job,
but-
so you can scroll backwards in time, right there. I didn't like to see that.
Yep.
I guess one thing that I did was as soon as I got there, I put in, thinking I was preparing for this meeting, I went and chose my starting date as June 5th, because that was our last meeting, and an ending date of today, and it automatically brought up all of the meetings that have happened, and click into it, click the minutes right there, and it actually, I didn't know that functionality was there, because I'm used to the old website wonkiness.
So we need a community website training.
Yes.
Oh, I see. With free pizza.
Yes. Probably some donuts and coffee and a big room. We could do it remotely though.
Yeah.
Pizza delivered to everybody?
Maybe. What's the budget?
Yeah, if they did it remotely, then we'd have to teach them how to split their screen first because they'd be trying to watch you share your screen and do it at the same time.
So what action is there action we want to take? Kendall, you have another comment you want to make?
I would just say that if it's fairly easy for them, just include the link and see what happens. Going from there.
Improvement.
So the which link? Is it the link that goes to the site that has all of the things on there?
Yeah, right. So when you put right in here, you just include that in our packet so that we could click on it.
Right,
That's a
and there's
start.
no expectation that the select board will read every word of what's out there.
No.
But the public might.
Yes.
And they're
Fine,
looking at the
yeah,
agenda.
Yeah.
Because I gotta go do some reading now and find out why it's RPD now instead of PDI. We had RPD pizza party. I didn't hear about that.
You didn't?
No, I missed out.
You were camping.
Not well. Can't wait first.
All right. So the consensus that we want to include the link to the website that includes all meetings minutes or agendas minutes in each meeting packet so that folks who look at the meeting packet can find that link and go to that site and read what they want. We also will have access to that. So if somebody asks us a question, you can go find the minutes for the specific meeting that is of concern.
I just have a question to follow up with that whole thing.
Mhm.
So like, we're using Civic Clerk, right? And I don't know if forgive me if I'm misremembering right now, but was the Google question ever resolved?
I don't know what the Google question is.
Like when the time I Googled something.
Oh.
I thought that
If it's related, the question of whether if something is related to the meeting, perfectly fine.
Okay. Because that was gonna be my question is, I know it's not
went
really Google, but it's basically Google, the Civic Clerk thing. So are we allowed to like, somebody asked us a question of, hey, can you look back to this, March 28th meeting? I just want to make sure that was okay that we go in there and we, click on it.
During the meeting, you can search anything. You can use your electronic device for anything that supports the purpose of the meeting. Sure. Yes.
Which
I
is a
went
public
and looked at the
record.
policy and
Okay. I just
corrected myself.
I couldn't remember if you had told me after. Or...
I'm unfortunately remembering my dinosaur days when we didn't have these in front of us.
Oh, yeah.
And having this even on the table was frowned upon.
Right.
Yeah. So apologies there.
No, it's okay. I was
Yep.
just following
Yes,
up.
you may use your computer for purposes of the meeting while you're in the meeting.
So do we need to take action on that to do that?
I don't think so. I think
just direct.
What I'm hearing is we're gonna have the breakfast on Thursday. We can always report back after we have it.
Yep.
And
I guess what is this breakfast on Thursday? It's the third time I've heard you say it. What is it?
We're so after the last meeting, Tammy and Marguerite and I put our brains together. Maybe we mentioned that at the meeting too. The idea of having a breakfast with the chairs of all the boards. That's kind of a thank you for what you've done, and also just a chance to get in the room and talk and offer, what support can the select board give. We had some money in the budget. It's the end of the fiscal year. We figured we would try to make it happen by the end of June.
I'm sorry, what?
Use it or lose it.
No, I get that, but I heard you mention it and I hadn't seen anything about it. I didn't know what it was. Thanks.
So we'll do that. I'm hearing that you're okay with putting the link in, not all the minutes. Not sure if you want to proceed with any of the other ideas or just mull them over for the time being, or if we should start planning to do invites or set up liaisons or anything like that.
Anybody want to advocate for anything?
I still think that these committees need to do a presentation to this select board at some point. Minutes are fine, but especially for future planning, we need to know where they're going and what they need. And that is not always reflected in the minutes. It doesn't have to be the chairman if they don't want to sit down. It could be anybody that's willing to sit down by the mic. I'm just saying, minutes are fine, but we need to know what's happening and what the future, especially now, we're in uncharted territory as a new town. So that's just my opinion. Whatever you want to do is fine.
So my thought on that is that we know which staff members represent each of the committees, and as they go through their budget preparation, they should be considering what the committees that they support need, right? I mean, we generally don't do specific, individual budgeting for each committee. It's up to the staff that supports them to. But that's I guess the thought that I have. Anybody want to advocate for any of the additional items that have been suggested?
No, I want to thank you for how you broke it down, whoever broke it down, because it was Ethan friendly. I love the little comment sections on the side.
All right, so we still have a couple of business items that.
Sorry about that.
One of them was the intent to go through the first two subsections of the charter, the updates that were proposed by our charter committee. And then we also have a discussion about appointments after that. Should we proceed? So I took the proposed charter amendments and I laid them out, the first two chapters, and unfortunately the blue looks very much like the black in the document. Next time I will use green instead of blue. Hopefully it has a little more contrast to it, so it's hard to tell where the changes are here.
I get which one? Ours are red. What
No,
are you looking at?
So
Mine's red.
No, that's blue.
Yeah, there's stuff in there that's blue too. That's the problem. It's black.
No.
Yeah.
Where do you see
That whole together with all the implied powers?
Oh,
is
see,
all
that
blue.
looks black to me.
I had to
I'm
zoom
sorry.
in. I had to zoom in on it, but once I zoomed in,
Yeah. So there may be a significant disadvantage here in that somebody has to read aloud all of the changes if we use this document. Do we want to defer?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, given that we still have a lot of business left, could we maybe move this to a different night?
That's a little bit what I'm thinking, especially since given the format of this, that it's really difficult.
Honest,
When I put this together, I did it. My computer gives me a black background with colors in the foreground, so it looked very different than when I saw it in the packet. I'm like, oh gee, and then I printed it out and said, even in this harsh lighting, I can't.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick out, and I don't want to read the entire content
Yeah.
to you. So let's.
I had to zoom in on it. I was drawing a blank there when I came back.
Extremely difficult to read.
Well, I thought it was 100 times better having it this format, because I read it and I zoomed in once I saw the blue because I was looking for the new language.
The fact that Don said no, there's no blue in the document anywhere.
I can't. I mean, other than what he just showed me, it still looks.
This is problematic, so let's defer this to another time.
That's perfect.
I can work with you on
Second.
how to
To
present.
make sure we have a good color contrast or a way that this works better. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
All right. So then we will move on to. I apologize to anybody in the public who might have wanted to comment on it. Does anybody want to comment on? No. Let's move on. We'll bring it up again. So the next item is to consider appointments to boards and committees. We'll do that in executive session. So consent.
Make the motion we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ethan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tracy. Any comments?
This is on the consent agenda?
Consent.
Yeah, I had a couple comments. Line 200 of the minutes should note that I said that the town should not be paying for the road if V-Trans is, not that V-Trans shouldn't be paying for the road. Is in the minutes, the correction.
Okay.
And that was it. Greg answered my questions on the warrants. Thank you. I will note, take 5 minutes, that if The water and sewer department's newest truck is a 2014. And we're doing $9,000 of repair on it. Might be worth getting a new truck. Because it's already almost 10 years old. And that's the newest truck. It's one of those capital items to be aware of. So, that's it. Thank you.
Did you send that one correction to the minutes to?
Yes.
To Greg, so you've got that?
I've made a note and I'll touch base with you, Kendall, to make sure I get it right.
Okay. Right, so we have a motion to approve consent with one change in the minutes. Do we need a new motion to do that, or just any?
I think you're fine.
All right, all those in favor of approving consent, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, consent is approved. Reading file, any board member comments?
I would like to thank the committee that put together Juneteenth, especially a young man named Jamal, and I apologize because I did not catch Jamal's last name.
Hanky, I believe.
Hanky?
Yep.
He did an awesome job putting it together. I mean, and given the fact it was Father's Day and it was not a very warm day, they had an awesome turnout. The music was wonderful. And again, I'm sorry that the rest of the board didn't show up, but I do appreciate all the work that went into it, and also thanking Tatanisha because she did desserts for it too. So really good.
You done? You got comments?
I have a comment, and like I said, I apologize. I did not bring my computer with me this weekend to spend time with my family camping. I didn't have a chance today, but I'm really confused about the V-Trans sweater because they're willing to move the speed zone to make it a 40-mile-per-hour speed zone, but in the same sentence they say that a pedestrian only crossing where the speed limit is 40 miles per hour or less is the only place they put in the lighting, and they're getting away with it by calling it a bike ped crossing. But my understanding is in the state of Vermont, you cannot ride a bicycle across a road crossing. You have to stop at the road crossing, get off the bicycle, walk the bicycle across the road crossing, unless you are continually in a motion that follows the road path. So I didn't know, and I'm sorry, like I said, I went camping this weekend, I didn't have a chance, but I'm just a little concerned that they're trying to maybe swerve that one.
I'm going to choose my words carefully.
Okay. Yes.
We got a response from V-Trans that is willing to make some improvements at that crossing. And having talked to our public works director and our planner, who are both experienced with transportation and V-Trans and those types of things, we all agreed that we're getting something. It's not everything we asked for, but it's a good step in the right direction. Are we thrilled? No. Are we happy that there was acknowledgement that the problem could be improved? Yes.
Just out of quick curiosity, and then I'm totally that I can email you about this later, but would that help reclassify that by having that a 40-mile-per-hour zone? Is that the benefit of the change?
It's already 40 miles an hour. They're just moving.
Well, only one side of it's 40 miles per hour. The other side of it's 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
It's
really,
Yeah.
Crossing is here. It's 50 going this way and 40
going
there,
the
vice
other.
versa, and it's not until you get to here or here that it changes to the other. So, yeah.
That's what. Yeah. It's. But I'll follow up in an email. I just had to make a comment about it because I was reading it last night. I was like, what? So thank you. Appreciate all the work that went into that also.
Right, and on the charter changes that are in there, those were consideration they were going to be for consideration at the next meeting. We'll defer those and also make sure that we have good high contrast
Thank you.
content so that we can tell what the changes are. Thought I did it all right. All right, so let's then go. Anybody, any other comments?
On the reading file,
Reading file, yeah.
a welcome aboard to our new town clerk as of July 1st.
Yeah, yeah.
Good choice.
I think so.
All right, we have motions to go into executive session.
I move that the select board enter into executive session to discuss the proposed public official appointment in accordance with 1 VSA section 313A3 and to include the town manager and deputy manager.
Don, do I have a
Could you do
second?
maybe it wasn't in the packet, but the full appointment, employment, or evaluation of a public officer or employee?
I don't see it here.
If you're willing to accept the amendment.
I'm willing to accept the amendment, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ethan. Any further discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay, motion passes 5-0. So there's only one motion there that we need.
That's all.
And so, assuming we're making appointments tonight, we will come back to the meeting. Scott, you don't have to stay. And
Mr. Chairman, if we could maybe just take a 10-minute break, let him take stuff down and we could stay right here because everything's spread all over. Instead of going upstairs for executive session. Let him pull his equipment and go, and then we'll have it right here.
okay. Is that,
It won't take me 10 minutes to get out of here.
Right, that's what I'm saying. If we take a 10-minute break and then we can do executive session right here.
all right.
Because everything's, I mean, all the applications and everything are
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's
Okay.
spread all
There's
over.
there's a lot of stuff we might want to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. So,
Make the motion, we take a 10-minute break before going into executive session.
Second.
okay. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Ethan. All those in favor of a 10-minute adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Okay. So, and I didn't say.